Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very, very special anniversary episode of Not Your Father's Movies. I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jesse, and we are the Dad Fathers coming at you with some anniversary energy.
We're officially 1 year old!
Woo!
We're so old!
We're just about to learn to walk.
Finally. And then right after we walk, we're going to take our first drink, have our first stogie. It's going to happen really quick.
I'm going to go fast.
But it's been a whole year since we started this out with our Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy out in my garage in Southern California. It was very lo-fi back then. Has not changed much.
We're out of your garage.
Out of my garage, now into my basement. We've made a significant improvement.
Yes, we have. Internet has gotten better.
So much better. Guys, you won't believe the floors and the walls that I've drilled through to get a hard line to my basement to improve the internet. And you won't believe the hundreds of dollars that Mike spent to upgrade his Wi-Fi network so that we can do this. And you won't believe all the money that Jesse spent on the outdoor patio that he has so that the kids can go outside when he records. All for you, right?
It's all for you guys. It's all for the podcast.
It's all for the fans. We're doing this all for you.
You're welcome. So for this anniversary episode, what we decided to do is that we came up with a series of questions, and we asked these questions to our very frequent collaborators or those that were just really, really close to us. We've interviewed for this show Liz, Letteney, Sirr, David, Dave, Chris, our composer Max, and Dom. Now, what you're going to hear in the show following is going to be an edit of some of those questions that we asked those people kind of in a row. So we'll state the question, you'll be able to hear the person's responses. And we just did this to kind of just honor the people who worked with us and also to just show you just an inner working at how all of this is, like show you a peek inside of our minds and our collaborators' minds and what we think about dad movies. Did I do that well, guys?
Yeah, it's all about dad movies, right? Like, we're here to talk about dad movies, and dad movies, like, we like to limit it to one movie in an episode, but sometimes we want to talk more broadly about the concept, and we thought the anniversary episode was a good time to reach out to lots of people and get to talk about that. So we cast the net wide with this one.
We tried to honor the collaborators that we had worked with a certain number of times. So if we worked with you just one time or just like one or two times and you're not in this episode, don't worry, you could be in another one soon, okay?
Oh, and shout out to Sirr, because I think he has only collaborated with us one time, even though Vito's collaborated multiple times with him. But he has personally sent me at least 2 computers because after I had computer issues with the Big Sleep episode, he stayed on the line later and just offered to send me one. And from now on, we've been having a functioning podcast because of Sirr. So way to go, Sirr.
Thanks, Sirr.
We want to reward the people that do a lot of good for us. Likewise, Max, our composer, has not been on an episode yet, but he's the one that gave us that original guitar riff way back when for free. And has just been very happy in listening to the podcast and been a very good collaborator so far. Anything else you want to add, Mike, before we move on?
No, I think that you guys said it really well. I'm just really excited to hear the episode in its final form. We've each interviewed separate people, so I know what my interview sounded like. I'm really interested to hear what your guys' it sounded like. That's going to be very exciting for me.
They sound like shit. No, they're wonderful.
Good.
They're wonderful.
Good.
Liz has some wild takes on dad movies, and I thought that was interesting.
Ooh, fascinating.
I mean, Liz is the most reliable of the wild cannons, the loose cannons. So I'm really excited to hear.
I mean, the Saturday that I don't know, they're not even super wild. It's just like, I can't. What? Okay,
great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So this is before we've constructed the episode, so we have a lot of surprises for you in store and for ourselves in store as we put it together. But kind of moving into us talking about our episode before we go to our collaborators and our interviews, maybe a good question to ask is, out of all the episodes that we've done, and now we've had 52 episodes under our belts, guys, are there any calls that you would change? Is there any opinion that right now you want to recant in front of our audience?
One that springs to mind would be when I called the 1954 Cinderella a dad movie. I think I would like to take that one back a little bit. That doesn't even fit with anything that I've gone on with since to say is a dad movie. Like, I remember my reasoning, like, I still think it's important to show your kids, build that when they're babies as a foundation for more fairy tales they're on, but, like, nah, no way.
Nice. That's solid.
I don't enjoy watching that movie. I don't want to associate
Cinderella 1954 with you.
Don't you remember the 42 minutes of animated mice running around?
I still want the newer one to be associated with me, though. If I could have, like, dates with my daughter, just, like, watching that would be fun, right? If you could take your daughter out and, like, I don't know, watch Cinderella with her and still both kind of enjoy the movie. Yeah. So I'll stand by that one, but not the original.
I can't remember. Did I say that the original was a dad movie? Because if I did, okay, good. Good job. Good job, past Mike.
I think that was a unanimous no. Yeah.
It was just me. So now it's a unanimous no.
Now it is. Good. Fair enough.
We've all grown. We've all grown through this process.
Mike, how did you grow?
Well, I've been thinking about this a good deal. And I have very little memory about what I've ever said in my life, but I'm going to go ahead and stand by just about everything I've said since our very third episode, which was Spider-Man 3. And you know what? I'm going to make a little change here. I'm going to change this one up. Because at this point in my life, I'm going to say all 3 of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are absolutely dad canon.
Yes! Freedom!
Spider-Man 3 just went from not being a dad movie to being the dad canon.
Absolutely. It's up there with the Pirates of the Caribbean, original trilogy. Right? Like it's just this wild, rambunctious, doesn't make any sense, but gosh, it's fun to laugh at and enjoy some parts of.
It's up there with the latter half of the Pirates of the Caribbean series.
the final 2 of the 5.
Come on, those it's way better than those 2, Jesse.
I feel like the Grinch. My heart grew 2 sizes. One other person in my life doesn't just sneer at Spider-Man 3.
Oh, that's a great one. Vito,
that's good.
Vito, what call would you like to change over the past year?
I say something incorrect every single episode. It's a mission of mine. Just look back. I'm wrong all the time. I hope to admit that I'm wrong all the time as well, even as I, in the episode, passionately advocate for the fact that I'm right. But a big one that I want to change, a call that I'd want to run back. I'd want to run back in our top 5 episode of the year, top 5 movies for 2020. I believe that we said I'm Thinking of Ending Things is number 3 and Defy Bloods is number 4. And having recently revisited Defy Bloods is number 3. I think conclusively.
Actually, it might be the other way around. We might
if it is the other way around, then I just support what we agreed on.
Actually, I will say now, after seeing I'm Thinking of Ending Things, I don't think I'd put it in my top 5.
That's fair. We'll have a more conclusive top 5 this year. But if I said anything against Defy Bloods being higher, then I take it back. It should be higher and should be remembered. And as time goes on, also, I'm Thinking of Ending Things I think should also be a little bit less. Too much Oklahoma, guys. Too much Oklahoma. Why is it so dependent on me having seen the musical Oklahoma? That's what I want to know.
It's really oddly specific. It's just very strange.
Incredibly. Did you like the pig, Jesse?
No, that's when it lost me. that is exactly when I said no. I'm not in.
I do not. Well, so you got it like 2 hours and 10 minutes in, and you're like, no.
Yeah. I think the dancing. No, the dancing came before. I don't know. The naked old man. I don't know.
It's quite a lot. All at once.
Yeah.
Well, I think if those are the takes that we're going to take back, I'm pretty happy with that. In typical dad fashion, they are haphazard and strongly put. Also,
I kind of completely forgot about the top 5 episode. I didn't even remember that happened.
I cried, Mike. Don't you remember that? You cried. There was crying.
I don't know. I don't know. This is like 9 months ago. I've had a baby since then. Like, who could tell?
Oh, I love it. I love it. But then, Mike, if you can't remember anything, would you tell me what's an episode you'd do over, or would it just be the last one you were on?
Wait, what was the last one I was on? True Grit?
No, just if you don't remember anything.
No. I actually, you know what? I do have what? Well, I don't know if I like do it over because it's like it was bad. I don't think it was a bad episode at all. Actually, I think it was a really good episode. But our Into the Spider-Verse episode, I would love to do that movie again because I think that there's a lot there, and I know like other people who have said like, oh man, I'd love to do an Into the Spider-Verse episode with you, and I'd love to get like other collaborators on to talk about it and talk about how they felt about the movie because that's just a strong dad movie, and I just love that movie. I feel like there's a lot to talk about. So there's that one because it's good, not because it's bad, but just like it's good and we didn't hit everything. Maybe I don't know. And then the other one that I kind of want to redo. I don't know how much I really want to redo it, but like 12 Angry Men. I think that that one was really fun while we were doing it, but it kind of cycled out of control with our recasting. We went pretty in depth on other actors.
It was an hour and 15-minute long sidebar.
Yes.
the longest ever.
There's another call I remake. I said someone that I shouldn't have said. I don't remember who it was, but I was like, that's not right. So someone can tell me that. But that would be the other one I'd want to redo.
Wait, Mike. So someone could tell you the one that you did, but you didn't want to do, and that you could take that back.
Yeah. So if someone wants to tell me which one I shouldn't have done, please do.
I think we could look to past collaborator Dominic for that one. Jesse, what would you redo? Is it the 12 Angry Men episode?
Oh, that's the absolute top of the list. In fact, I think one day we legitimately should just redo the whole episode, put out 12 Angry Men 2.
Yes,
the dads come back.
Revenge of the Dads.
Yeah, because like we spent so long recasting, we didn't even really talk about the movie that much. And then when we did, we were kind of awkward, and I'd like to just scrap the whole thing.
Yeah. No, we share that one definitely. I think all three of us unanimously we say if we could redo one episode, give us 1 week of prep time, it would be 12 Angry Men.
Cool.
I guess
we all agree.
Maybe we should redo it the next year.
Yeah, I'd love
2
to.
years?
2 years, maybe 2 years. I need a little bit of time to watch it. Did you have another one though, Jesse?
Honestly, no. Like there were some gaffes or whatever, and some other ones that we've done, but that's the one where I'm just like, if I had to start from scratch and redo a whole episode, it'd be 12 Angry Men. I can't really think of another one where I'd really say I'd like to just scrap the whole thing.
Yeah, for myself, I would like to redo. Obviously, 12 Angry Men. That's the number one. All three of ours. There's a Venn diagram. We all verge on 12 Angry Men, and a picture of I don't know, sweaty dudes in a box.
Yeah.
But in that Venn diagram, that's all by myself. Is I would like to redo Nomadland, and I would actually like to sit that one out, and I would have liked to have heard you guys talk about it because the longer I sit with Nomadland, the least I find I have to say about it. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means there's nothing in the movie for me. I don't know if it just means I'm just not resonating with anything. But I still don't feel anything about Nomadland. I still feel completely empty when it comes to that movie. And when I listened back to that episode, besides the audio trouble that we had, which was still fun when it was going on, right? I would like to have maybe just pulled myself from that scenario and then heard you guys talk about it, because then I might have found something.
That's fair.
For myself.
That's fair, yeah.
That's interesting. I wish I wasn't there, take.
No, I wish I'd heard you guys talk about it with Dave, and that was a very enlightening conversation. But I just remember at the time I was sitting there going like, I am not contributing anything to this.
Yeah, I still think that I still like the episode though.
Yeah.
But it just occurred to me when we recorded Nomadland, I recorded it in my van. The spare bedroom was being taken up at the time. And that was a weird experience. And there was another episode that we tried to record in my van that never came to fruition. And that is about
Yes.
time.
Yes, the only episode that we have completely lost.
Completely scrapped, and I'd like to redo that sometime.
Well, it's coming in the future. Remember when
Yeah.
we closed that episode and we had a very special guest who will, I hope, come back, and it was really going to be really fun. We were very excited to do it. We all watched it. I cried. There was revelations on the show. Like, it was a big deal.
There
And
was.
then
I found out something like very deeply personal about Vito.
yeah, I shared a lot.
It was something I always wondered about. That I found out why. It was like it was mind blowing, and it was recorded, and then we never released any of this because we didn't record the rest of the episode.
Because it fell apart, completely apart.
It was awful.
It was sad. It was really sad. It'll come to you someday, listeners, someday. But before that comes
It'll
to
be
you,
about time when it comes to you.
Ooh, I have a series that could possibly.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm proud of myself.
Well, if you have a series, we'll have to talk about it. But I have to ask one final question before we go to our interview show. And I'll ask this of Jesse first. Jesse, what was your favorite episode?
It's a tough one, but I think I have like two. La La Land was with Chris Sebastian, and then
And your
Liz,
wife.
Liz popped on for a little while, and that was so much fun. That was
Yeah.
like a genuine, like, invigorating conversation to have. And then also Cool Hand Luke with guest Aaron Olonick. She came, like, I was kind of confused about the movie. She came on and clarified some things that I thought about it. And it was great. Like, it was cool to walk into something and, like, genuinely change my mind and see far more about a movie than I had previously. And yeah, that was lots of fun.
What do you think, Mike?
That's awesome.
Are those your favorite episodes too?
They were in the running. Those were great episodes. But I'm gonna pick. I think my two favorite. Nomadland was also in the running. When I was thinking about this, I really loved that episode. Not because you didn't have anything good to say. I thought you had many good things to say, but it was just like
Thank you.
it was such an incredible revelation about, I don't know, the differences between people and how we are approaching these things differently, which I love. I love that. But I think my two favorite are probably Baby Driver and Fargo. Baby Driver with Dom and Fargo with Phil. Those were fantastic episodes. Those were a ton of fun. Man, I'd do it over again with them. Like, that was great. It was a fun time.
I laughed so hard in the Fargo episode.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Phil was killing me. And it was difficult, like, trying to record it because it was later. Jesse was kind of tired. We were all tired, but it was like later at night, and we were trying to cram it in, and we were like squished around. I used to have this terrible gray square plastic card table that we'd sit around that was dented really hard in the middle, so all the computers moved inwards on each other. And it was so hard sitting around that and trying to have a 2-hour conversation close to a microphone and not moving, just holding yourself still and not causing ambient noise. And we were cracking each other up. That was really hard. All of us were cracking all of each other up. That's a good memory of mine. I loved that. Recording that was a lot of fun.
Oh, man, I just remember my third favorite episode. I'm going to shout this one out too. It.
Yeah, I was just remembering that too.
That was such a fun time. But Dave was coming on. I think he was one of our first guests besides Letteney. I think Letteney was our first.
Yeah.
He just came on, and it was such a good time. Like, we were laughing a lot. Then it got, like, oddly deep. Then it got, like, really funny again. It was great. I love that episode.
I do too. That one is like, I didn't know that we could knock it out of the park so quickly. But I really feel like patting ourselves on the back about that one. That's a good episode.
It was a good episode. What about are those your two favorite, Vito, or what's?
It's Spider-Man. Spider-Man for me is my favorite. The very first one, because I like endings. I'm sorry. I like beginnings and I like middles. Endings are hard. Endings are hard for me, just in terms of general everything. And for this to be the beginning, for us to all be talking and making something together, like Jesse and I wrote like a freaking like zombie movie in college together, and it was a ton of fun. And then Mike and I would play video games for hours and talk about life, and like sometimes write poetry or short stories and like come up with ideas with each other. And to now merge all of it together, two of my closest friends in my life, into something that we all did together was just such a joy. And I remember sitting in my garage, and it was like a little cold that night. And we're just sitting crouched around my one microphone, trying to make sure we all sat in the exact right places that we'd done sound check for. Was really incredible. And it meant a lot to me that we got to be all together in that place. And looking back on it, listening to it, I've listened to it like 4 or 5 times, guys. It still sounds like a lot of fun. Whenever I feel kind of tired, I go back and listen to that first episode because it still sounds like we are having a blast. And that kind of gets me going to do it again.
Well, it was really fun. I couldn't believe that it was happening at the time. I remember being like, I don't even know what a podcast is really. I listened to a few, but I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why anybody's going to listen to this.
And thousands of people have. That's what's crazy.
at least 5,000 downloads at this time. 5,000 something or other.
Between 5 in the Fugazi, it's a Fugazi, it's a who's it, it's a what's it, it's in the middle. Yeah, we're doing great. We have all kinds of countries that are listening to us. It's really, really gratifying.
Romania, you're awesome, by the way.
Romania's out there.
Yeah.
Hungary, the Ukraine, Australia, Germany.
Not to put a huge damper, but I always kind of just envision a VPN.
Look, if it is, it is. If it's not, let's shout out the home country. Isn't that great? If you were listening from a different country to a podcast from America, wouldn't it be cool if that podcast acknowledged that you were listening to them? That would be rad. Also, the UK. The UK listens a lot. Yeah. Scotland, Ireland, France, Spain. A lot of downloads there.
Canada's up there.
I don't want to acknowledge Canada.
We love all of our listeners equally.
Oh, and Russia.
There's a lot in Russia. I've seen a couple in Russia too. It really surprises me. But if you listen to us internationally and if you like what we say, please write to us. All of you out there, let us know who you are. We hope that you have enjoyed this year of Not Your Father's Movies, and we look forward to the future and to what we have to come. So from all of us here at Not Your Father's Movies, I'm Vito, and I have nothing more to add.
I'm Mike, and I have nothing more to add.
Okay, that was just more of an open invitation. I didn't want to cut anybody off.
I'm Jesse, and I have nothing more to add. So let's go on to the interviews. Friend of the pod, Liz. Wife to Jesse, who's me. I'm Jesse, interviewing Liz.
Hey. Hi.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Nice to see you around.
I don't think I've ever told you this, but it's actually been an aspiration of mine for years to do a podcast just with you. Even
on what?
It's just one episode. On anything.
Well, we've done 2.5 at this point.
No, just with you.
Oh.
Not with those other guys.
They have names.
We don't need to name them. Don't bring them into this.
So Liz, what is a dad movie to you?
A dad movie to me is something that embodies humor, strength, and sacrifice. Not sure about the ratio. I think it would vary depending on what movie. But I guess I'm just a more serious person, and so I can't separate dad movies from my view of fatherhood. And fatherhood has a lot of humor and strength and sacrifice in it. And so a dad movie has to have all of those to varying degrees to be a dad movie to me.
I have a special guest here. His name is Anthony Letteny. If you listen to our show, then 1 out of 8 episodes stars you.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Yeah. And right now, Letteny happens to be living with me. And I have to admit, I was a little, taken off guard that a guest from Not Your Father's Movies was going to be living with me. And then I remembered I'm a host on the show, so everything was okay. So, all right, so we're just, we're here to kind of recap the show, I guess, a little, and to ask you a few questions about dad movies in general, since you are a dad movie expert.
So I guess this sort of gets into the question of what do I think a dad movie is. And I was thinking about this today, and it seems like... So, a year ago, if you'd asked me this, before you guys started the podcast...
yeah, what would you have said then?
I would have probably... I mean, the short answer is I would have said a World War II movie. That it seems... So it seems to me like the general, at least pre-podcast, the general idea in my mind was that a dad movie is primarily a movie in a genre that dads love, and sort of dads exclusively love. So, like, it seems like it's almost a prerequisite for a dad movie that mom's not going to enjoy it. That this is something that either dad's going to watch alone or dad's going to watch with his sons.
Yeah.
But it's not a movie for the whole family. It's not a movie for mom. And it seems like a World War II movie is like the perfect cross-section of that, where it's too violent for the whole family, and it's got, like, that manly... It holds up those manly virtues of courage and determination and all that.
Yeah.
As... It just seems like it's right down a dad's lane. So yeah, so I guess pre-podcast I would say a dad movie is...
A World War II movie.
Yeah, a World War II movie, but just generally like a movie that is in a genre that dads either exclusively love or especially love.
Okay.
Beyond other people.
So post-podcast.
But post-podcast. So it seems like... I mean, I don't want to speak for you guys, but... The sense that I've gotten from what you guys are doing is that, one, you guys are trying to sort of unpack what... Because it's sort of a nebulous concept. It's sort of like... It's like a dad joke or a dad body. Like, it's got...
Oh, no, we know what a dad body is. I have one. So, I'll show it to you. Make it more clear for you if you want.
But, yeah, so I guess maybe a dad movie is a sort of... It's a pretty undefined term. Maybe undefinable term in popular culture. So it seems like maybe one of the things you guys are doing is trying to unpack that, but it seems like maybe the other thing you guys are doing is, given that you're millennial dads, and how much it seems like, especially with our generation of millennials, there's been a huge movement of like cinephiles and people who love movies, love diving into movies. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's where people who love obscure movies or who are followers of a director, where maybe in the past it was more just movies. Yeah. You know, people weren't so scholastic about it. Like,
I mean, you couldn't. Well, it's harder to be when you have to go and pay for a movie ticket.
Yeah,
and then take like 3 hours out of your life. Whereas, like, sometimes I'll just throw a movie on in the background because I have 1,000 streaming devices that can all play it. So
yeah. So definitely, it seems like the internet has made all this very easy.
Yeah, accessibility in general. Yeah. I don't even need VHSs or DVDs anymore.
Yeah, you don't even need to take the DVD out of its case and put it in the player.
Or rewind the VHS.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my word, that was the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, it was always like 5 minutes of just staring.
Yeah, or it was like whatever was fed to us on TV before, right?
Yeah.
It was like you were stuck with the movies that you would intentionally bought so you knew they were good because you weren't going to spend your money on movies that sucked.
Yeah.
Or you watched movies that sucked on TV because that's all there was.
Yeah.
And this is a new age for this. Yeah, you're right. It's very different, and we are trying to unpack that. I think you're right.
Yeah. So maybe you guys are trying to talk about millennial dads and the new generation of dads with the internet and with all these tools you're talking about. Streaming and the internet and all that. So, and it also, based on what you were saying, it seems like maybe the limitations of movie watching in the past were one of the things that made dad movies what they were. That because, like, you maybe didn't want to take a risk on a new movie or just settle for what's on TV, if you're a dad, you keep going back to these classics because you know they're good. And maybe that's one of the things that sort of molded the idea of dad movies or shaped how dads watch movies.
Yeah.
Where maybe that isn't true anymore. You know, we all have access to, millions of movies, the click of a button. With a couple clicks of a button, you can read, hundreds of reviews from reputable sources. You can just get a percentage grade. And so you have all these tools that allow you to, I guess expose yourself to new movies and new art without much risk.
Well, if you're like me and you don't trust any of that, because I don't, I generally don't look at the Rotten Tomato score or anything. I just look at the trailer. I really try to judge things by the trailer, but that isn't even like, people couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
This is a weird new age. It's kind of cool. But, man.
Yeah, it's sort of crazy to think about that in the past, the only place you saw trailers was at the movie theater.
Well, or on TV.
Oh, yeah, or on TV, sure, yeah. But not on demand.
Also, the movies on TV, they're like, they're more mass-marketed movies. So you're not going to see the weird ones.
Yeah.
The Studio A24 would not exist. Well, it clearly didn't exist 20 years ago. But I'm
now
not
it's
sure
a powerhouse.
Yeah. That's really strange because everybody wants to stream it.
Yeah.
I don't think any of those movies would play on TV, though.
Yeah.
TNT Tonight. The Green Knight. Oh, man.
Yeah, what was the last one we watched that was A24? Oh, Locke. Locke was A24.
Yeah,
Like that,
great.
I mean, it's a great movie, but that's not a flashy movie.
No.
Like, I feel like that'd be hard to pitch to, a mass audience.
Yeah.
Hard to grab eyeballs.
All right, so here we are interviewing Sirr from the My Movie Fix podcast. How are you, sir?
I cannot complain. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. Glad to podcast. I love getting my fix.
And getting your fix no matter how, anywhere at all times. Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm recording on the microphone, I'm pleased.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons that we love talking to you so much is just your deep passion for this. So we're going to start out with a pretty easy first question, I think. What is a dad movie to you? I know you've explained this on our Big Sleep episode a little bit, but maybe you could give me another example of a dad movie, if people haven't heard that episode.
Yeah, the one I brought up at the time was Triple Frontier, the Ben Affleck movie when they're like army guys and they go to steal some drugs and get trapped on a mountain or something, whatever. But yeah, it's like that's my idea of a dad movie. I think the exact phrasing is a movie you come downstairs or whatever your house is. You come into the living room at 10 o'clock and your dad is asleep on the couch while that movie's playing. That's my idea of a dad movie. It's the type of movie your dad will he puts on for his pleasure at 9 o'clock and falls asleep watching. That's a dad movie to me, and I guess it's, the more I think about the term, the Not Your Father's Dad movies, the more it's hard for me to consider the fact that I'm a dad now. I've been a dad 2 years now and I just had a daughter a month ago. So it's like, would I fall asleep watching at 9 o'clock as a dad movie? Because that's me now, So I still, in my head, when I picture it, I think of an older dad because that's, I'm 15, 16 and my dad is however old he was when he's falling asleep on the couch. So it's hard for me to picture myself in that role. But yeah, so a dad movie to me is a Western, a noir film, something with a man doing man things or, protecting somebody or, I forgot what, I was listening to some podcast where they said a dad movie is where a dad is proved right. Somebody at the beginning of the movie says the dad is wrong for some reason and he proves him right by the end of the movie. So that's what a dad movie is to me in my head, that
Right.
vibe.
Right. I shared it in my birthday episode, but the number of times that I've fallen asleep during the raid or the raid 2 is embarrassing.
Well, that must mean it's a bad movie then, right? Because you keep falling asleep during it, right? Right?
But I turn it on at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, all right, let's get some sick thrills in here. And I get a couple and I'm like, oh, it's like my security blanket. Oh, I'm going down.
Yeah. Oh, bloody murder.
Some people they watch the Nicholas Sparks things, the Notebook, they get a good cry in, go to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's my boy Rama up to? How's he gonna wreck some fools?
I go to the rain scene in the Notebook. It wasn't over. It still isn't over. I could watch that scene 50 times. That's my jam. But the rest of the movie, whatever. I don't care about the being Swan and dying, whatever. But that it wasn't over. It still isn't over. Oh, that gets me every time. Sorry, but yeah, that's not a dad movie.
Because you're awake for it.
Yeah, even though this dad will fall asleep watching it, it's not a dad movie. You know. Yeah.
Well, maybe someday. Stay tuned to season 54 of Nyfm Brothers movies when we do the Notebook.
We'll get around to it. The 2000 era classic, classic film.
We'll just let you do the bumper for it. Yeah, we'll let you do it. All right, everyone. Welcome to another interview for our anniversary episode. I am Vito, and I'm here with David from Seriously Pointless Conversations About Culture. How are you, David?
Doing great, Vito. How you doing tonight, man?
Doing good. Yeah, just you are another one of these interviews that we're doing. We're trying to push all these in and have a fun anniversary show. So wherever this sits in the show, I hope it works out.
Yeah, the happy anniversary, guys. I know you guys kind of started roughly a little bit before we did. So like I said, it's a momentous year or a momentous time of the year. So congratulations, man. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's didn't think that. I mean, we always had plans to dominate the world, but once we actually are seeing how the world dominating is going, that's special.
You got to backpedal a little bit. You work on Minions first, and then you just progress from there, right? That's how it starts.
Perfect. Well, so for these interviews, we're asking 5 questions from our collaborators, and 4 of them, at least the way that I've been doing them, 4 of them you get to know, and then there's going to be one surprise one.
Ooh,
yeah,
secret.
We'll see if you. Can you do it well? Who knows?
I don't know. Knowing my wife, she'll probably tell me that I'm going to flunk this test. I'm just telling you that right now. So she's very critical of me and my test taking abilities. So she goes, action oriented stuff. You're on the ball. Written questions. No go.
No go.
That's the way I am.
Well, this is perfect. Then we'll just do it action style. All right. Now, question number 1: what is a dad movie to you?
Well, I mean, it's kind of going off that adage, that you guys have been pushing this whole time. It's something that makes you kind of wax nostalgic, right? About your dad, your parental father figure. I mean, because it doesn't have to just be your father or like whatnot. It could be anyone that you kind of look up to, that you spend enough time with, and you've obviously seen movies with, right? That's how I always kind of see it. And it's just something that you could literally sit down with any dad too, for that matter. At the same time, it's kind of one of those extra multifaceted things. It can also be like you said, you sit down with any kind of grumpy old man and sit there and watch. Who is it? Walter Matthau? No, that's not Walter Matthau. Walter Matthau. Sure, yeah. And I can't remember his side buddy. You can sit that. You could literally watch that. I could watch that video with any grumpy old guy, and they would be all about that. Just grumpy, horny old men. That's exactly what it is. But you can, I mean, it's just
Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau.
Jack Lemmon, that's who it was. I knew they were like huge friends their entire life because they were an Odd Couple together, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's like I said, it's something that you kind of can reminisce about a little bit. If you're just sitting down with somebody, and they could be like, "Hey, I saw this with my dad." That's. And you can kind of just sit there and absorb it together, I guess. And then at the end, you're just like, that was fun, And sometimes you're like, that wasn't fun. You can go that way too with it, And it's still kind of a dad movie if it's just so terrible, it's fun at the same time. That's kind of how I always thought about those. But yeah, that's kind of what a dad movie is to me, essentially.
I love asking this question because of the people that I've asked it to, I actually haven't gotten the same answer from anyone, which is kind of amazing and makes me happy that we're doing this show because at first blush, I think everyone says, "Oh, I know what a dad movie is." But the fact that everyone's answers are different speaks to just how different our opinions are when we all think that we all have the same one. We clearly don't.
No. That's what makes, I'm kind of pulling my parent card out for a little bit. It's kind of like this book that I read my kid all the time. It's by Sesame Street. So you can have, it's called We're All Different. We're All the Same. And that's, nice. But we're all wonderful. And it's the same thing. So we're all, even though we're all guys and most of us are dads or parents, we all have different opinions. Right. So it's just kind of that's like you're saying, it's like we all have a little bit different opinion on what a dad movie is, but it's all kind of a little bit the same. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definite seeds and roots that we all share together in this giant tree of dad.
It's
That was
definitely-
a terrible metaphor, but
well, it's
there.
okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Brother Dave, hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Not Your Father's Movies. I'm Mike, and you are
Dave.
What's up, Dave?
Yeah, Brother Dave.
Brother Dave.
In fact, yeah.
We're really excited that you're here to talk to us today. So, like I think I was explaining to you earlier, we're recording some interviews for our anniversary episode that's coming up. We've been doing this for a year for some reason, and we wanted to talk to each of the guests that we've had on over the last year, some of our collaborators, to let them have the stage a little bit more than usual. So that's why I asked if you could join us. Do you have any problems with that? Are you open to being interviewed?
I am honored. Yeah, and happy anniversary.
Thank you.
One year. It's been an honor to be part of the Not Your Father's Movies podcast family.
It is a privilege to be a part of our family, that's for sure.
I feel it.
No, but it really has been wonderful to have you on. So I was trying to remember which ones you were on. I remember you were on for Nomadland and for It, right?
Yeah,
were you on for another episode as well.
No, those are the two. It
Okay.
and Nomadland. It was the first one I did, and then Nomadland was quite a bit later, like 3 or 4 months later, I think. Yeah,
that's funny. We kind of had like a whole rash of of guests that were on for a while, and as we've gotten sort of busier over the last, it's crazy. It seems just like a year ago, it seemed like no one would ever do anything ever again.
Right.
And it was just like, we were just sitting around and like, let's make a podcast. But yeah, as things got more and more busy, it's time's gone by.
Yeah. Well, that was the time. That was the time to start.
The good old days.
Yeah.
But so I've got a few questions for you.
All right.
And let's take them like in order. And I've also got a surprise question that I wasn't supposed to text you beforehand.
The gotcha question. All right.
A gotcha question.
Okay. No new tax increases, right?
How do you feel about student loans? No.
Hate them.
Hate them. What is a dad movie to you? What does it mean for a movie to be a dad movie?
I think there's there's two kinds. I think there's two ways you can look at it. I think a dad movie, for one, is literally one that is that you share with your dad, like in a particular time and place, and there's a sort of like generational transfer that goes on there. Like, this is something that was informative for me, and it's essential for you to see it, and I want to share that with you, and you actually experience that like in the moment, and then it's something that becomes part of you that not with all those movies, but with some movies you feel the need that, okay, I need to carry on this lineage and pass it down. I think that's one way it can be. And another way, I think that a true dad movie is one in which you get something important out of it as a kid, as the son or daughter who's experiencing with their dad, but that the movie is rich enough that when you're an adult, when you are a parent later and you watch it again with your son, you get something different or something more out of it. So there's enough in there that it kind of covers the whole spectrum. And I feel like in movies I've watched with my dad, there's been that comment that, sometimes it'll be like, oh, I didn't remember that, to some risque scene. There's something like, oh, now I see that's risque. But then there's other times when you watch it together, and I feel like my dad got something new out of it watching it 30 years later with his kid. And I think that's kind of the test, because some of those movies, he's shared, and both of us agreed at the end, like, yeah, actually, that wasn't really that good. Like, I remembered it being good, but it didn't hold up. But then others, he would say, wow, that's, better than I remember it. So I would say a true dad movie is one that still kind of can withstand that test of time too.
That's really cool. That's a really good, that makes me think of like classics, like the classics, right? Like in general are books that you like, classic books or whatever, books that you revisit, 10 years down the line and there's something totally new, and you're able to see it from a new point of view because you're older and you've had more life experience.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing, I guess, is what you're saying, is that a dad movie is one that does that, where it's sort of teaching a new lesson or giving you a new view of life, where it ages as you age, maybe something like that.
Yeah, and it's one that's like it's simple enough that you can get the main point of it as a kid, but then it's complex enough that even as an adult, you're still seeing further points that it's making that you don't see for like there's just more in there that you can get. And I think if you watch it with your kid, that's probably part of it too, because you're like always conscious of the fact that they're watching it too, and you're thinking about how they're reacting to it too. So that kind of puts it in an interesting space as well.
I hope he doesn't.
I really hope he doesn't. This is incriminating. I want my dad to be able to listen to this.
Has your dad listened to it?
He listened to the first one.
Really?
That we did. And then
was that the Prestige?
it was the La La Land.
No, that was La La Land. Yeah, that's right. We did Prestige with Austin.
I just realized
we did La La Land with you,
and then Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates. Okay,
the first one.
That's right.
Which actually, I just realized I never sent that to him, but we talked about because I watched that movie with him for the first time, so I'm going to send it to him. But he actually really liked the La La Land.
That's awesome. Too. That's
yeah,
awesome. Thanks. Thank him for listening to it.
Yeah.
It's always love having listeners.
Yeah. All 2,500 of them.
All 25 million of them.
Oh, of course.
We've got like half
well, 25 million listens, like overall, right?
Oh no!
Individual users,
individual. Yeah, subscribers.
25 billion, even.
Yeah, no, we've got 25 trillion. In fact,
it's a multi-galactic.
It's a multi-galactic podcast. We're beaming it out to.
Did you watch The Expanse at all?
I watched some of it a while back.
Okay.
I watched like through season 3 or whatever, and that was the end of it. And now there's season 6.
Yeah, it's got it. That was definitely the best part of it. Like the first 3 seasons were the best because it was like kind of that continual storyline. There's some good stuff after that though.
Yeah,
and I've heard that it's the weird instance in which the show is actually better than the books.
Okay,
I kind of want to read the books. There's like a billion of them though, and they're all super long. But Joe Thompson was telling me that.
Oh, really?
That the books are fine, but the show was better. Because what else have we talked about like that? No Country for Old Men is the other instance in which the book is good. I mean, it's worth reading, but it's Cormac McCarthy. I guess the road did not really lend itself well towards film representation.
Did you see that movie?
I didn't, but I've heard that it's not good.
I started watching it. No, I told you that, right? Like, so I started watching it, and but it was like the IMDb TV, so it was like broken up with commercials, and like so it was a super dark movie, and then the commercials were like M&Ms, like yellow, just like bright yellow, bright like Target, bright red.
It's like all of capitalism just like infused into a world without any kind of structure.
Yeah, and like they're not like the ads are just like they go at minute 15, minute 30, minute 45.
So it's in the middle.
So it's in the middle of like a sentence, yeah. Like, son, we must Target.
The guy really like grabs the son and is like, now I've got a knife to your throat. And it's like, for your pet deserves the best food. Yeah. No kibble for them. Just have them eat this salmon caught fresh from Alaska.
Exactly. It's very generic. Well, and like the book is so much of it occurs in the dark too, like the pitch black. And how do you make a movie in the pitch black?
It's so much introspective and just like inner monologue about what is the meaning of life, which makes for, I mean, we had fantastic conversations about it, but it's tough with those sorts of introspective books to have them portrayed well on screen.
So here, why don't we? Let's jump into these questions that I have. I think that's a really great start.
Yeah.
But Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today and for coming on in the past and in the future.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Soon in the future, hopefully.
Start into podcasting.
Yeah,
and it's been a pleasure. It's been really nice. It's been an honor for me to be a part of it. I always will answer the bell whenever you guys need.
It has been an honor for you, absolutely. Yes. The honor's been all yours.
It has. Why would I?
The honor's been ours as well. Yeah. No, I wanted to talk to you. We've got some stuff coming up that I wanted to see if you would join us for. Awesome. But what we wanted to talk to you today about is we've got our anniversary episode coming up. It's coming up here.
Happy birthday.
Why, thank you. That's copyrighted apparently, so you can't.
I thought it just got released into public domain.
Really?
Like there was somebody went to bat for it,
or they're like said this day in the year 1919, and now 100 years have passed.
That's amazing.
So
okay.
I won't sing any more of it.
Well, okay.
Just in case.
Okay. Well, for our anniversary episode, we're going around. We're talking to all of our collaborators over the past year, and just wanting to chat with them and to kind of put the spotlight on you a little bit more, and to we've shown our own flaws to the world for the last year. We want to make sure that you have your time.
Yes, there's not enough time when we're talking about a movie to share my flaws.
So what would you say your deepest flaw is, Chris?
My deepest flaw is how secure I am. It's really difficult. I work too hard. It's like everyone tells me I care too much. I'm a perfectionist. Actually, now we're getting into things that might actually be flaws. My biggest flaw is not watching enough movies until I have to do a podcast.
Well, there we go. I guess you got to do some more podcasts. But so I've got a few questions here for you that I want to ask. What is a dad movie?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean to you?
It's such a good question, because I was thinking about just the 2 episodes that I was on were so different.
Yeah.
And this kind of will get into why I love the podcast, and I love the idea of the podcast in general. But because we were talking about La La Land, and our conversation about La La Land was very we delved into the characters, we dove into relationships, we talked about it as if it was a piece of literature, which it was in a lot of ways. And at the end, I was like, yeah, this is a dad movie. And then we did Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like, yeah, this is also a dad movie. Wait, this is so different. Like, how do we meld this concept of dad movie into something that encompasses a whole lot of things? I know you guys have talked about this a lot too.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to figure it out ourselves. Yeah, like we feel it, but just if you feel it, it's got to be something
exactly,
define,
and just
right?
hammering down the definition or the ethos, if you will. One of the things that I was thinking about with this is that it seems like a dad movie is an excellent opportunity of it's a teaching moment. It's a way to engage with a piece of culture at a period in history, and engage with your children, engage with your father, engage with your parents, engage with culture in general at large, in loving characters and loving a plot, in being able to learn lessons from things. And so I think part of the reason why I love the way that you guys talk about movies and the way that you engage with them is because you treat it as if it's a serious thing, and it is a serious thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why I also love literature, and why I think of movies as a part of literature, as a part of that subset of literature. So when I'm thinking about what it means for it to be a dad movie, it's something that you can experience together with your children. And sometimes it can be like an engagement with catharsis, an engagement with how do you understand emotions, and the understanding that the world has things that might be sad, but also might be beautiful because they are sad. And at the other times, it might just be, hey, here's a whole bunch of pirates and dead walking on the bottom of the sea that are skeletons. And
Disney made it because they had a ride, and they thought, hey, we might make $1 million off of it.
It's so good. I did just re-listen to our episode. I was like, that was really fun. Like, we were just like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, dead men tell no tales. But yeah, like I just because I was thinking about what's a good movie experience I've had with my children lately, and we just randomly do movie nights with the kids occasionally on the weekends, and we watched, and I'm blanking on this might be the wrong name for it, but it's like Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh,
or something.
yeah.
And
how was that?
It was actually pretty good.
Really?
I had almost zero desire to watch it when it first came out, because I'm like, okay, like this just kind of looks cheesy. I don't know. Maybe we'll get around to it at some point. But
I didn't watch it when I was a kid. How could it be any good?
Exactly. Like, my dad didn't show me. Yeah. So
kids' movies stopped when I turned 10.
Yeah. That's true. Oh my gosh. 2000, 2001. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when Phantom Menace came out. Oh my gosh. But I saw my daughter at the end. There was actually like a moment of catharsis.
Really?
And as in like, she actually was worried about
Oh,
what was going to happen in a way that was like she was engaged with the plot. It wasn't scary. It was just like, wait, what just happened? And I was like, oh gosh, this is a really awesome opportunity to explain as a father, because I was just watching it for the first time too.
Right.
I didn't vet it beforehand. But I think that I will be happy for her having seen that movie, just for the lessons that it teaches. And we as fathers are trying to teach lessons and set our children up with habits and skills and just the ability to interact with the world around them. And yet to pretend that we have all the answers is a fruitless thing. And so we turn to, our community in general and our culture in some ways, and also people that make great art and write great literature and create great movies in order to help us teach lessons, both for better and for worse, because you're broadening your experiences when you're reading a book or watching a movie. And you can read a movie and come away with something where you're like, I don't like that. I don't want that to be a part of my life. But I engaged with it, and I'm able to actually see it as a thing that is good and or bad. And I think that is really, I look at dad movies as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so it can't just be, in my mind, just a passive thing. There are some movies that I'm sure are going to be just easy, where you just pop it on and it's like, oh, we just get to veg out and like hang out.
Yeah,
with this.
there's some that are like just cool, like Armageddon.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a lesson. I mean, sure, there might be a lesson there,
You
but
can dig really deep.
yeah, or not deep.
Or
Don't
not
dig
deep.
deep at
No.
all. But it's fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like you'd
And-
say that's a dad movie, right?
I would say that's a dad
Yeah.
movie, and just in
But
the same
also-
way that
yeah.
you can go to a park and just like
yeah.
run down a hill with your kids, and like, what's the deeper lesson there? Maybe nothing. Like my son Joe is just like, Daddy, want to roll? And I'm like, sure, I want to roll.
Yeah, haven't done that in a
A
while.
long time. Roll down a hill. It's so good.
That's awesome.
But it's opportunities come in so many ways, and like, yeah, I think there's something super beautiful about the idea of a dad movie as just an opportunity to just have a conversation, and the conversation could be as simple as, how awesome was that?
Yeah.
Or as deep as like, did they have a healthy relationship? Was that a good relationship? I don't know.
Is this how people should be acting towards each other?
Yeah.
But this is the interview with Max Agros, our composer, who did our original theme that went for 20 some episodes before it was remixed. So I'd like to introduce, for our interview subject here for our Not Your Father's Movies Anniversary episode, our composer, principal, and OG, Max Agros. Max, how are you?
I'm doing great, folks. It's good to finally do this. We've been talking about it for months, so thanks, Vito. The show is fantastic. The second you called me up that one day, I think way back when, last summer, I think you were already thinking about it. I thought it was a fantastic idea. I just graduated from business school, so I tend to think of things in terms of business somewhat now. And looking back, I just think, there's a market for this.
Mm-hmm.
You have all these people that are obsessed with the latest movie, the latest Marvel movie. All this, what I would call kind of fast food entertainment. It's not an evil thing. It's not bad, but
it's consumable, easily consumable and digestible.
Yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of the time, whether you're talking about old school Disney movies or somewhat more contemporary things like Pirates of the Caribbean, I know you guys are, when you're talking about those kind of from the mid to late 20th century to early 2000s Disney, that's kind of a classic era.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody likes them, but people don't tend to talk about them very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people want to talk about them. There's a lot to say. They've had a tremendous impact on American culture, for better and for worse. So that being said, I think the very premise of the show is just solid. It's a very, very solid premise. And I think it will continue to rise in popularity.
Thank you. I hope as listeners hear this, that it's going all across the nation. Yeah. So when I did tell you the premise of the show, we do try not to think too hard in business terms, but even thinking in business terms, when you make anything, you want to make sure it's going to be something that people will like,
Mhm.
that someone beyond the immediate friend group will want to hear. And some of the response we've gotten across the internet has been really kind of inspiring, with not only all of our collaborators who we have done episodes with, who have their own shows, but just our friends that wanted to talk about movies, and specific ones, even ones that we asked them, like, hey, have you watched this? And they go, no, but I'll watch it. And they do. And then they come on and we have fantastic discussions. It's just like, you and I, we went to the same school at different times, but it's the same stuff that we would always do, right?
Right.
We'd leave the movie theater, go outside and just talk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You need some kind of outlet, but that's not really enough. You can't just go out, watch a movie and get drunk after, or whatever people would do. It's much, much better just kind of with friends, sort of collectively experience something and talk about it. Even if it's bad, it's just a great way of, I would say bonding. Movies are just a great bonding touchstone. One movie that comes to mind that kind of fits into that phenomenon you're talking about is No Country for Old Men.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really big deal for my dad's generation, so Gen X. I don't remember the precise year when it came out. I would guess
2007.
Early 2000. Okay, 2007, mid 2000s. I was only 11 years old when that came out. All my friends were just 11. Wasn't really a movie that
11-year-olds are clamoring to see or know about very well,
or even allowed to see, even if we wanted to. I had never heard of it until I think I was in college. But the funny thing is, growing up, so actually, I had heard about it. Now that I remember, when it came out, I had heard my my uncles during family meeting, family gatherings, dinners and whatnot, especially over holidays. I remember that year, my dad and all of his brothers, my uncles, were raving about this movie. And being that young, obviously I hadn't seen it, but that stuck in my memory. And the first time I saw it, I believe, was right before I went to college with my dad. And I could tell by even the cinematography that was kind of from a different era of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
It's not super old, but it's old enough that I recognized it as something, though it is contemporary, it's in a different scene somehow.
Well, talking again about generations, right? So this is 2007, the big movie year of our lives, 2007. Yeah. That's when just about everything that that pop culture knows sort of began. Mm-hmm. It was this huge explosion of creativity and energy. A lot of stuff was on the precipice of breaking into something more. That's we talk about. That's the year of threes. There's, in the month of May, Pirates 3, Shrek 3, and Spider-Man 3 all come out within a week of each other.
And the beginning of threes with Batman. Batman Begins, I guess, is 2005.
2006. And then Dark Knight is 8. No, you're right. No, it is 5. You're right.
Yeah.
But then Dark Knight is the year following with Iron Man.
Right.
But then this year is also
another
the year
group of threes.
Yeah. But this year's also the start of Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So much of what we know starts here. But talking about the generational gap is, so we have the Coen Brothers making this movie. They start in the late 80s and essentially rule indie cinema with Tarantino, and from a small part, people like Sam Raimi. Guy Ritchie gets a start in the late 90s. We have David Fincher as well. These Gen Xers / boomers kind of coming in and really running the cultural showcase for a long time until, we are all kind of oppression age and we see this work. And like you're saying, I also, for the first time I see No Country, I was a little shocked.
Yeah.
This is not the thing I'm used to seeing as a kid.
Right.
Again, I saw it when I went to college too.
Yeah. It was basically in college when I saw it. And, I was too young post 9/11 to really understand where the United States was on a kind of a mass psychological level. I think this country really radically changed from 2001 and onward. It's just, we're not the country we were in the 90s, but I was too young to really see that transformation happening. And the movies that came out, I think, kind of fit the mood a lot. Sure, you had your fun movies. You always have your fun movies, but No Country for Old Men in particular really fits post 9/11 America. It's very nihilistic. It's very dark. I'm not sure how popular it would have been in, the mid 90s when, it's all champagne and the stock market and it's the end of history and we're all going to be millionaires and stuff like that.
Because all the nihilism there was, it was so flashy. It was so fun.
Yeah.
And this is something a lot, like, speaking of where this fits in a time, every movie that comes out is obviously a product of its time, but I was trying to think of this year, what's it? Those Who Wish Me Dead, written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, comes out starring Angelina Jolie. And this is like very much a throwback to 90s thrillers. And we have all these different characters running around doing different things. And it's funny that I can say that this movie is a throwback to 90s thrillers. And it's the first time I've been able to say that in my life, that we've come kind of a full circle. Now we're appreciating things that came out only 20 years ago. And it's, speaking of No Country for Old Men, speaking about it being almost 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm if that came out this year, it would be ignored, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's No Country for Old Men coming out in 2021. How passé can you get?
Yeah.
It's been done to death since then. But when it came out, it was a representation of what America was kind of quickly becoming, which is this very culturally confused nation at war and seemingly perpetual war. And right before the stock market crash of 2008, which was kind of the final nail in the coffin to really cement this kind of what I would call great American confusion or American nihilism. Anyways, I don't really know where I was going with that, but with Old Country for Old Men or No Country for Old Men, it's a representation of an America that we lived in, but we were too young to see as it really was, which was this kind of transformative era. And the really cool thing about movies that are in that era is you go back and watch them and you kind of learn what that time was like. Even if you were around to see it, you didn't really see it. You going back to these movies, you really see what people were thinking in a way, in a sense.
Feeling. Especially with this winning, Best Picture. It's clear that this mood, this sort of meditative piece upon, again, passing away of generations, and then confusion about where things are going next, is on the minds of a lot of people.
Yeah.
In such a way that it was awarded the highest prize that we have in America to give a film.
Right.
And of course, you can say whatever you want to, and rightly so, about the necessity, accuracy. I don't know. What's the word? You can talk a long time about the fallibility of the Oscars and its usefulness as a barometer in society. And you'd be right in all those criticisms, but it does still stand as the ultimate metric. It's the biggest prize, you know, politicking both aside and included.
Yes.
So with No Country for Old Men, though, I did want to ask, what is a dad movie to you?
That's a tricky question. It's kind of, it's almost like asking, what does it mean to be a father? And since I'm not a father yet, at least not as far as I'm aware. Just kidding.
Sorry, Mom.
Of course. No, but since I don't know what it means to be a father, it's kind of hard to at least very accurately say what a dad movie is. I would almost prefer to answer that question as a dad, maybe 20 years from now, where the movies that are coming out now, or maybe even 5 years ago, will be then considered dad movies. But, that's the lame answer. So I think what I will say...
Yeah, we prefer definitive statements.
Yes, of course. So definitive statement. What I will say is that a dad movie, to me, is one... It's a movie that says something not fundamental about becoming a man, but more becoming a person. Because you will have movies that are focused more on, the nature of women.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait until we do more.
Exactly, and we will. But that's kind of what I would say is a dad movie is one that it has some kind of narrative about becoming a whole person. I think that lends itself to dads watching classic movies with their kids, especially even something like The Lion King, something that simple and, for younger people, a movie purely about nihilism, purely about violence. I wouldn't necessarily say they're dad movies. I wouldn't say Reservoir Dogs is a dad movie. I wouldn't say The Sopranos is a dad show. Those are different beasts, but things like The Lord of the Rings, definitely a dad movie. Say what you will about them. I think they're great movies, but I remember when I was young, I think it was the third movie I had ever watched in theaters. It was me and my dad. We went to go see Fellowship of the Ring when it came out in
2001.
It was 2001. So I was only about 6 years old. And previous to the release of that film, my father had made sure that we had read through the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Wow.
He read them to me.
That's a young age.
Yeah. I still remember it, though. I remember being shocked by all the little twists and turns and stuff. I remember being very bored by the seemingly endless time that the Fellowship spends in Rivendell.
It's very boring as a child.
It's very, very boring. But it's very long. But we moved on and we kept reading, and I eventually just became captivated by the story itself. And since it was read to me by my father, I just thought, this is a thing between us. This isn't shared with anyone else. So it was very formative to my personality, I would say. And then the movie comes out, and I was thrilled as a 6-year-old. I couldn't believe they were making a movie about this incredibly intricate and detailed story. Even back then, I just thought, gosh, how is this possible? They're making them. I love movies, but how can they capture something like this? Something that is only between me and my dad. How could they do this? Right. So I was I didn't feel negatively about it as a little kid, but I was just very kind of confused. How could they actually do something like this? And, eventually, I think it's around Christmas time, we go out to this big theater in Waterbury, Connecticut. Terrible town. I don't recommend visiting. But that's where I grew up. And so we go to see this movie, and I see Frodo all of a sudden, who, as a little kid, I kind of identified with. He's a hobbit. As a little kid, I also identified characters like Gandalf and Aragorn with my father. And all of a sudden, it's like us in the movie. Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And The Lord of the Rings, not to get too into Lord of the Rings itself, but I would say that a core aspect of the trilogy, both in the books, well, especially the books, but also the movies, is the development of Frodo as a young adult becoming as kind of a lesser person, a hobbit. They're lesser people, They're little people. They're kind of ignored in the scope of history. They're outside of history. Yeah, exactly. So this character from backwoods nowhere with their own little weird culture becomes, well, I'm not going to say a man, but he kind of becomes a man, and not just a man. He actually becomes a hero. He becomes a total hero. And a full person by the end of the trilogy. That is, in my opinion, just a classic example of what a dad movie is. Becoming through adversity and through growth, becoming a hero. And I think we're all called to be heroes on some level.
All right, so I'm sitting here talking to the Baby Daddy Award nominee. Winner? Are you winner?
I'm the only nominee.
That's true. You are. Yeah. And I guess by default, the winner. Because you were on the Baby Driver episode, right?
I was. And I made a bad dad joke.
Bad dad joke.
I was awarded the Baby Daddy Award.
It follows you around. Very unfortunate.
Oh, I like it.
But we're here with Dom, who has been on the Baby Driver episode, the annual Oscars episode, and also on the Army of the Dead episode, before he departed to go actually work in movies in Georgia. And I guess to start, when you think about Not Your Father's Movies podcast, when you think about everything that you've heard, what did you think that you were going to be walking into, and what did you actually receive?
You mean like as a guest?
I mean, as a listener,
as a
like
listener.
when you first encounter the show and you're listening to some of the episodes, what did you think you were going to hear? And then, did the show sort of live up to those expectations, or was there something different that happened?
Well, I knew that. Yeah. So I knew that it would be fun because I know you pretty darn well.
Yeah.
And I had met Mike a couple times.
Mhm.
Didn't know Jesse, but I figured it'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun. I don't think I've ever really thought about the concept of a dad movie before you mentioned the premise of the show. So I was curious and excited. And the fun part, of course, you lived up to my expectations and often exceeded them. The show quickly became part of my weekly routine. And I have been thinking more about what a dad movie is. And now I'm thinking about what my dad movies are, or what they have been with my dad and what they will be with my kids eventually. So thank you for that. That's actually a thing that I had, I guess I probably thought about it, but not given it a name. So it was good to get that. And I just love hanging out with you guys virtually while listening to the show every week. It's been really, really enjoyable part of the last year.
Thank you. Yeah, it's we wanted to make sure that it always felt like our listeners could be a part of the show. But even more than that, you are a dear friend, a close family friend, and it was a pleasure to have you on as many times as we could, which is what we did try to do because you were local, and because you just had this enthusiasm. I mean, you were going off to make some movies of your own. Would you like to talk about that at all?
Yeah, totally.
What's your next step?
Yeah, of course. So I will be moving to Atlanta in a couple of days as of this recording. And I'll be living with a family that the son is a classmate of mine and a very good friend, Jacob. And the father of that family has been working in the film industry for decades now.
Yeah.
He's a dolly grip, which means he pushes the camera. If there's a
I
smooth,
see his credits on Godzilla from 1998, which is like one of the earliest memories I have.
Yeah. But, the dolly grip pushes the camera. If it's like a smooth tracking shot along the hallway, he worked on every season of House of Cards, which is known for its tracking shots.
Very much.
That's him. He describes his job as he's at the bottom of the totem pole, but he's the top of his section.
That makes sense.
So he knows everyone. He's friends with everyone. He has a great professional reputation. And he and his wife have been helping kids like me for years now get their way into the film industry. So he and myself and his son, Jacob, are going to be interning hopefully on something he's working on. Mm-hmm. But either way, he'll be able to help us find something. And you got to start somewhere. So I'll be interning and hopefully be finding consistent work in Atlanta.
That would be really cool. We wish you all the best of success. I guess a question that I would have for you, is there a dream auteur, or is there a dream show? Is there a dream movie that you would like to be a part of? I mean, imagined or real?
Yeah. I'm not a huge TV guy, so I don't think there's a show, but I would absolutely love to work with Christopher Nolan or Denis Villeneuve. They're my two favorite directors. They're my idols. I've been following them pretty closely for the last 5 or 10 years. I would just like to be in a room with either of them and just talk to them and see how it happens and hopefully learn from them. And the dream is to start out writing and then eventually get into directing if the writing works out.
Nice.
If the writing doesn't work out, I'll be a production assistant, camera assistant, dolly grip, whatever. I'm happy to do whatever, but I would love to be up there someday with them.
Nice. From the stuff that I've seen from you and from hearing the fire of your inspiration, the excitement of your talent, I think that you have a long way to go. So in a lot of ways, I feel very excited that you would want to talk, and that you're embarking on this next phase of your journey. And I hope that we can, as a podcast, sort of like check in on you and just see how you're doing.
Totally.
It'd be really good.
Yeah. I'm a little scared, but as Ryan Gosling put it, it's very, very exciting.
It's just very exciting. Yeah. I guess I would ask you, having listened to our show, what's a dad movie for you?
So for me, and this is stuff that I've thought about, but mostly what I've gotten from you guys, there are two components, and they could both be there or just one. There's a component that's future and a component that's past. The future component is, what do I want to show to my kids? What do I want to watch with them? And, help to guide them through their cinematic experiences going forward. And then the past is, what was that like for me growing up? So what did I watch with my dad? What was he excited to show me? Or what were we excited to find together? So it could be both, or it could be just one. There are, new dad movies that hopefully will stand the test of time that I'm seeing, this year, last year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Army of the Dead. Is that one of those ones?
Absolutely not.
Good to hear it's remaining strong.
But I did just see one today that hopefully will be one. It's The Quiet Place Part 2.
So that's what our kids are going to associate with me, but what are our kids going to associate with you?
Oh, that's hard, because all the movies that I love are heart-wrenching and highly inappropriate for small, sensitive children. I think that I would love it if our kids associated Little Women with me. I don't know which one. I actually really liked the new one, but the older one is really good too.
Why not both?
Or both, doesn't matter. Because I really admire their mother, Marmee, in that movie, and in the book. And there's a particular point that really stuck out to me as a mother, where Jo realizes that her mom has just as quick of a temper as she does. And she got to be 16 years old or something without ever seeing her mom lose her temper. And at one point she says, Marmee, when you purse your lips and leave the room, does that mean that you're angry and you're trying to control it? And she says, yes. So Jo just realizes that her mother has the same flaws and struggles that she does. She just has learned to master them. And I guess that really, really affected me, because I realized that that's what I should be doing, is modeling to my children how to master my weaknesses and my flaws, because who better to learn that from than your mother or your father? And so, it was pretty formative for me, and it's just a beautiful story, so it'd be cool if they associated that with me.
Cool. Any others?
I don't know, musicals, because I love them, and I've already introduced our kids to many of their soundtracks.
Which ones? Besides Les Mis.
Well, there's Wicked, there's Hamilton, I feel like I've done Rent, at least some songs from it.
Rent? You showed our kids Rent?
No, I didn't show it to them. I turned on some of the music from it.
I don't remember that being kid appropriate.
Oh, it's not.
Why are you showing it to them then?
I didn't show it to them. The musical's not kid appropriate, but the music's fun. And some of it's fine. Don't worry, I put filters on it. What else? Possibly Phantom of the Opera. That one's innocent enough. Unless you listen really closely to a couple of the songs, but they're not doing that. Anyway.
Or, see what's going on with the
again,
guy hitting on a
have
16-year-old.
not shown these things to them. Just the music.
Does he impregnate her?
No!
Oh, in the sequel.
There's not a sequel.
There's a sequel.
Aware of.
there's a sequel to Phantom of the Opera.
Are you being facetious?
No, there is a real sequel to Phantom of the Opera, and she's pregnant with his child.
Oh my gosh.
Or has had his child for years, or something like that. I don't know.
Well then. Nope, haven't gone that direction. Anyway, I love musicals so much, and I think it would be fun if the kids looked back and had some fond memories of being introduced to that sort of music and just fullness of life and energy, and just storytelling in that manner. So, yeah, that would be really great.
Let's talk about the future, because you don't have kids. Eventually, one day, you want to have kids.
Yeah.
So, when your kids grow up and are also talking about dad movies and what they watch with their dads, what movies do you want them to associate that with you?
That's tricky because like you said, I don't have kids yet, and I've heard you guys talking about the idea that you don't want your kids to know you the way a friend knows you. Maybe there's sort of naturally a little bit of separation between you and your kids, a separation of authority, a separation of sort of a little bit of distance, that your kids experience you through the role of their parent.
Yeah.
And it's very defined in that way. Not having kids and not having put too much thought into those dynamics and that relationship, my gut reaction, just thinking about like what kind of movies do I want other people to know me as, it seems like that's a different answer than what movies do I want my kids to associate with me. So I don't know, maybe for me it's the same answer right now, and maybe that answer is kind of pretentious, but it's that I would like to be known for obscure, awesome movies.
All right, like what?
Like one of my favorite movies I've watched this year is called Memories of Murder. It's by Bong Joon-ho.
Okay.
It's a great Korean movie. It's based on a true story about this serial killer in like rural Korea.
Okay.
And it stars, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's the actor who plays the father in Parasite.
This is Vito jumping in here real quick to say the actor is Song Kang-ho. Sorry, I had to jump in and say that. I had to. Couldn't stop myself.
Yeah, it's just a great movie that seems like only film buffs know about, or Bong Joon-ho fans know about.
That's true, because I have not watched, or I think I've heard about it, but have not seen it.
Yeah.
And it's awesome?
It's pretty awesome, yeah.
Is that your top movie of the year?
It's not my top movie of the year. I don't think it's the best movie I've seen this year, but it's one of my favorites that I've seen this year.
Okay. It's funny that it's not your favorite, but that's a movie you call out to see like your kids associate with you.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm talking about obscure movies, so that's the obscure movie that came to mind this year. But I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, thinking about what movies do I want my kids to associate with me, it seems like there's some universals that everyone wants, at least every dad wants. Like, I think every dad wants their kids to associate them with The Godfather.
That's true.
It's just a timeless classic. There's so much there. So I think, yeah, so maybe it's a two-part answer for me. One part is, and maybe this is my ego or something, that, like, me priding myself as a cinephile, that I want to be known for obscure movies. But the more general universal answer is the classics, Godfather,
yeah,
those movies.
What movie would you associate with your father?
That one's obvious. It's Shawshank Redemption. That's one of my dad's favorite movies. For, I don't know, I think it was Christmas 2 years ago. 3 years ago. They got a new house, and the house a little bit bigger, and it had a theater room in it. So for Christmas, I got my mom a framed poster of the Purple Rain. A framed poster of the poster or whatever, but yeah, she's a Prince fan, so I got her Purple Rain, and I framed it, the poster, and I framed it in the glass frame and all that. And for him, I got Shawshank Redemption. I bought the poster on eBay and I put it in a big frame because that's one of his favorite movies, and so anytime I watch that, it just reminds me of him because I know he liked it, and it's the type of slow, meandering type, it's a dad movie to me.
Classic.
That and Green Mile as well, just because
classic.
That's what he physically looks kind of like Michael Clark Duncan, Duncan, and like when Michael Clark Duncan died, that like I don't know, it like yeah, it's one of those like when we talk about celebrity deaths, that one I literally text my mom when I find out he died, and I was like, just make sure he eats healthy. It was like Michael Clark Duncan has zero physically in common with my dad, but just like finding out Michael Clark Duncan was not invincible, it just shook me. And I was like, just make sure he exercises, because I don't know how I could handle just finding out my dad died. So yeah, between Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile, both of those are just kind of movies that just they evoke my dad in my headspace. Yeah,
those are great answers. It's amazing that we got Stephen King, who can do stuff like It, and then he can pull off this 1-2 punch of just these short stories, and you go like, oh my gosh, like I feel the trembling at the edges of my soul.
Yeah,
that's a great answer. What movie then would you want your kids to associate with you?
So this one I struggled on a bit, because there are lots of, I've got a collection of movies that I consider my favorite movies, the movies that I identify myself with. But excuse me, but a movie that I want my kids to associate with me, like I've seen when Harry Met Sally X amount of times. I just it's not because it's New Year's Eve, and it's not because I'm lonely. It's not because it's New Year's Eve. I'm here because when you want to realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. I watched that scene so many times because it's one of those type of movies. But I don't want my kids to watch that and think of that. That's not.
I'll have what she's having.
Yeah, but for me, it's The Fifth Element, because that's for the longest time when somebody asked me what my favorite movie was, that was my go-to, because I've seen that movie probably more times than I've seen any other one. Because this was back in the era when TV came on TV. When you flip through the channels and it would just be on. So kids these days, you don't understand what that concept is. But that's what TV was like. You have to watch what was on TV, and Fifth Element came on TV a lot, and I would always watch it, because no matter when you came in, something was interesting was happening. So Luc Besson, he's very hit or miss, and mostly miss these days.
Yeah.
But Fifth Element hit, and it hit hard, and knocked it out of the park. And that's one of the ones where I want to watch that with my kids. I want to watch it multiple times. There's the briefest, the briefest bit of nudity, I know, because I've done the science on it. I've done the freeze frame. There's the briefest bit of nudity in it, but it's like there's not gratuitous sex. There's not, there's a whole lot of violence, but it's not gory. It's not The Raid. It's not. It's it's just an action fun movie. And so that's the kind of thing I want to watch. I can watch that with my kids without covering their eyes at certain parts or feeling icky about something happening. That's the kind of movie I can watch time and time again. It was one of my favorite movies growing up, and that's the kind of thing I can pass down to my kids. And they may like it, they may not, but it's like, oh my gosh, Fifth Element, that was my dad's favorite movie. That's the kind of vibe I want to evoke. Yeah.
Nice. That's a really good answer. I remember too. I mean, I'm a little bit younger than you, but I had.
Thanks for throwing it out there. Thanks.
Oh yeah. I'm just a little bit younger than you. No, I say that kind of in a derogatory way.
But yeah.
I got in the last bit of the era of the whatever's on cable you're watching, and I remember I had HBO and at my father's house, and the Fifth Element would come on a lot. I remember Bandits with Bruce Willis and Billy Bob Thornton came on a ton. But like these are movies that I've now seen, like 30, 40 times, because you turn on the TV and you're like, oh, there it is. Okay, I guess I'm watching Bandits. Like this isn't a very good movie, but the Fifth Element's a lot different. I actually remember, I remember owning that on Blu-ray when I was in high school. Great movie. Yeah. Saturday afternoon favorite for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just, you drop me into any portion of that movie, I can quote it. I know what's going on. And it's just, I can watch for 15 minutes and walk away and not feel sad because I know what's going to happen next. Because I've seen it so many times. It's just one of those, it's entertaining to watch, even though you know what's going to happen. It's funny. It's like, that's like I said, when people ask me my favorite, that was one of my go-tos, because I've seen it so many times and I can watch it so many more without feeling, there's some movies that even though you enjoy them, you don't really necessarily want to watch them again and again. But Fifth Element is just, you can plop that down anytime, and I'm good to watch it because it's one of those type of movies.
So you might be biased, but I do have an additional question here for you because I just thought of it. Is Gary Oldman crazier in this movie, The Fifth Element, or Leon the Professional?
Well, he wasn't crazy in The Fifth Element. He was.
Haircut. I don't know that haircut.
Yeah, I mean that was dope. You know, so I love the character design. But yeah, he was like a villain. You know, he was a superhero villain before superhero villains. You know, he didn't have superpowers, but he was just like, he dressed wild and he had a master evil villain plan, and then he got his comeuppance at the end. So I wouldn't call him crazy. I call him, you know, a villain.
Nice.
You know, but yeah,
good sidestep.
Awesome. Like I say, I've loved Gary Oldman movies forever because of, you know, he can do this and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Like, what? Like, this guy's got range.
Yeah, he can do anything.
Yeah.
He is Winston Churchill, and also the drug dealer with dreads from True Romance.
Yeah. Does he have any Oscars? I don't know. If he doesn't, give him some.
I think he's only he's got the one for Darkest Hour, I think.
Okay.
I think.
I'm not sure.
The makeup did that for him. What movie would you associate with your father or father figure?
Oh wow. See, that's a tough one, man. Because you know as well as I do, you know, there's so many movies you sit down and you watch with your dad throughout their entire life, and just that one. God, it's so tough because, you know, I've seen so many with him, and he's fallen asleep watching them with me so many times. A story I like to tell is I took him to go see the new Star Wars whenever it first came out. Rise of Skywalker.
It is, right?
Is that the brand, not the last one? I'm talking about the first one in that trilogy. I can't remember what.
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens. Fell asleep in that.
Yeah.
So I was like, thanks. I'm glad I spent $15 to take you to the theater.
You probably really enjoyed the air conditioning. You know?
I guess he hadn't been to the theater in probably like 10 years. But anyways, I would probably say Star Trek, the Undiscovered Country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that the whale one?
I don't believe so. That's the very last one they did.
Okay.
I believe it's the very last one they did. Even more than like the Wrath of Khan, because my dad was he still is. He's a huge Star Trek guy. And I just remember watching those over and over and over again as a child. And although the one greatest part, I can't remember. It's not is it the whale one, the Undiscovered Country?
I don't know. I'm just looking it up right now because I truly don't. I think I maybe have seen this one time.
I remember there was it was a box set that he had. I think it was 4 of them.
Right. This is Star Trek 6.
I think that's the very last one they did, because they all kind of go off, and it's basically like the send off for all their characters, and they all kind of just keep going off and doing their own thing. They just go, and they're like not part of Starfleet anymore. They just go. And it's one of those it's just so poetic about this great crew. And I just remember watching it so much with my dad. And
nice.
I think I almost saw him cry one time.
Whoa.
I know. It's like, men have no feelings. Men not cry. Men hold scotch and drink and deep and bury sorrow. But no, it's either that, man, I love that movie. That's what I think about whenever I think of him. But at the same time, I think of like Patton.
Oh.
And A Bridge Too Far. I mean, I mean, the one movie I think I'd put it on would be probably Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country. That's what I would say probably. Even though I remember all the other ones a ton, because you got the whole whale one where Spock literally just like, you know, Vulcan neck pinches the guy on the bus, and he's like playing the loud music, and he just passes out and everyone claps. But anyways,
wow, you remember this very well.
It's ridiculous, man, and I'm just like, why do I know that in my brain? But yeah, it's that's the kind of stuff you do. But that's talking about dad movies. Yeah, that's kind of the stuff you remember when you watch these things over and over with your dad. So, but yeah, that's what I would put my finger on probably.
That's amazing you'd pick that. And again, just like the similarities that we have in our upbringing as well. My dad was a huge Star Trek guy. But, you know, for him, it was Star Trek, Wrath of Khan, and The Search for Spock. that 1-2. That was where he lived, and I remember we watched those. Just a disgusting amount, just so
I
much.
mean, what's not to love about little a Spock aging as from like really quickly on a plane? And I'm like, what is this? As a child, you're watching that and you're like, I don't know how old you were, but I was like 8 or 9, and I was freaked out by this. I'm like, this is creepy, and I'm like, why are you showing this to him? And Dad's like, learn, it's important. Like, why is it important? It's about this is how men love each other. They'll go to no ends of the earth to fight each other.
They'll go to all ends of the earth just to insult one another.
That's right. That's what love is between men.
And if you notice in the end of Wrath of Khan, it's funny. I just made this joke to my mother earlier today. But when Spock dies and everything, and they're on the bridge and they're trotting the casket out, going to bury him in space, right? Yep. And then Kirk gives a speech, and Family Guy like parodied it so well when he gets up there and he goes, "He was the most human." The only time he could say something nice about it was when that guy was dead.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. Oh, that's so great. Now I remember the part where he's like in the little tube thing and he's like shut himself off and he's just like, Jim. I'm just remember that.
But in looking at, passing on to your kids, obviously I see from the books in the background that you yourself are a hoarder. You probably will never escape this, and you will one day die buried beneath all your comic books.
I will. I'll be like, mine. Anyways.
But what movie would you want your kids to associate with you?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's so many out there that you want your kid to watch with you, and you want them to really enjoy. And I could say Star Wars because my kid loves it to death, but I mean, that just feels disingenuous with me a little bit. I think something that's near and dear to my heart, and this might be a random pull, I don't know, is the Rankin Bass Hobbit movie.
Oh, that's a great one. I watched that so much as a kid.
I still watch it, dude. I love it. So that's one of the things that I was able to connect with my wife on when we first started dating was the animation and art styles. She loved The Last Unicorn, which is a Peter S. Beagle.
Oh my gosh.
Another Rankin Bass film, which is gorgeous.
I know, but one that like crucifies your heart and your feelings.
It does. But I mean, it's still you can enjoy it, but at the same time, it's like I said, you like you said, it definitely makes you cry so much because you're like, oh, there goes the last unicorn. But
there it goes.
That's right. The last unicorn. Are you alive? Anyway, sorry. America sang that song, by the way. Anyways, random bullshit that comes in my brain. But yeah, she got me hooked on that, and I totally forgot that those two movies were by the same people, and we've started watching it, about once every couple of years. And I haven't shown them to him yet because it can be frightening in places. Because,
super creepy.
Yeah, much like everything that Tolkien wrote, it is a little bit more highbrow, and especially the way they draw things or the animated things in the movie, it can be really creepy, especially Gollum.
Yeah.
He's not cute and cuddly like he is in the movies.
Isn't that weird? Like it's like nightmare fuel. Some of the stuff in the animated movie. I love that.
The goblins with the two throats when they open up, and you're just like, holy crap! Like, can you imagine seeing that as like an 8-year-old kid, and you're just like, oh. Yeah, you definitely pee yourself a little bit, but
yeah,
you have nightmares.
People did not take it easy on children back in the 80s and 90s. Nope. They're like, no, face right into the hamburger grinder. Like
exactly. What you're gonna enjoy? That like, what was what's the thing I'm thinking of? Is like I had. Oh yeah, son. You're gonna cry about this movie. Well, I went through World War II. It's just like, okay, thanks, Grandpa. So it's like you're gonna cry and you're gonna like it. I'm like, what?
That's right.
I don't know where that came from, but that's the way my brain was it. But yeah, I really want him to sit down with me one day when he's old enough to watch that with me, because I've already kind of started planting those seeds of animation love. Like I've started watching the Star Wars Clone Wars with him. I started watching the Batman animated series. Actually, after you talked about it on our episode when you were with us,
that's right.
I know. We got to the first Joker episode, and he was just enthralled by the Joker. I'm like, I don't want you to be enthralled by him. What's up with these bad guys? So I think at some point we're going to get to that higher level of like animation, like Rankin Bass, and maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say who's the guy. I'm trying to think of. He did Dragon's Lair, Fievel Goes West. Oh my
Don
goodness,
Bluth.
Don Bluth. I want to get him to watch some Don Bluth because it's just sometimes it's more about the artist and like where they come from and the amount of effort they go into to make maybe just appreciate it a little bit more. But yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to go with that at some point. We'll see.
So the next question, which I think maybe you'll feed this idea into, is what movie or movies do you associate with your father? And I guess that's kind of a part of what you're thinking of when you're saying that.
Yeah, there's really two that come to mind. Probably the one that I have the strongest memory of, and maybe I would say maybe the first time I remember like experiencing a dad movie was I think it's from the 60s. It's a sci-fi movie called Forbidden Planet. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's basically it's like a sci-fi retelling of the story of Shakespeare's The Tempest, pretty much.
Cool.
Where it's deep space explorers who land on some distant outpost that was settled, decades ago, but has stopped communicating with the main, if it's Earth or some main human settlement. And so they're sent out there to investigate, what happened. And it's pretty much like the story of The Tempest is they like landing on the island and then they find a kind of a mad scientist sort of guy who has kind of learned the ways of the planet. And he's kind of the master of it, the way that Prospero is. And he has his daughter, and then he has a robot that basically functions as the Ariel, the fairy character. He's got all these crazy powers.
That's awesome.
And it pretty much mirrors that story more or less. And that was lost on me at the time. I had no idea what The Tempest was. But it was my first experience of a dad movie, I would say, that I remember because I was really young, maybe like 7 or 8. And my mom had gone to visit her sister down in Dallas. And it was just my dad home with me and my younger brother, Thomas. And I think, my sister was still so young that I think she went to bed, but we went to Blockbuster and he was like, yeah, there's this really cool movie we should watch that I really liked when I was a kid. It's called Forbidden Planet. So I think the whole ritual of him announcing like, this is something that, I'm going to share with you that I watched when I was a kid, going to the video store and coming back, which is a lost ritual too. But I think that was part of it.
I know.
And we ended up watching it, and it was kind of my first introduction to the world of like sci-fi in general, which was a big part of my dad's personality, especially when he was younger. And the movie was simple enough that I could understand it, but it actually had some real, there was some things at stake there. And there were, this guy was, the mastermind guy was, a complex character. Like he was sort of a good guy, but he had his deep flaws that were dragging him down. And then there's a whole plot about he had discovered secrets of some lost alien race that used to live there and had destroyed themselves somehow, but it wasn't clear which way. And the entire experience was one of, I feel like, getting introduced to sci-fi, a complex story. And I remember my dad remarking at the end of it that he was unsure if he was going to still like it because it had been maybe like 30 or 40 years since maybe like 30 years since he'd watched it. But him making that comment of like, wow, that was great. And then he started talking about how it was The Tempest and stuff. So it kind of had the intergenerational thing that he actually came out like, really satisfied with that.
That is cool.
And then another one I would say is probably Ben-Hur. He was always a huge fan of Ben-Hur.
Oh, yeah.
As many people are. That's just a great movie. But that's another one.
Didn't they remake it? Didn't they remake it in like
they did, and that's to me that's just blasphemous. I don't know.
How can you remake Ben-Hur? Yeah, who would do that?
It's just I don't know how much hubris you have to think you're going to do something better than that. I mean, even if you do a competent remake, like there's no way it's going to be anything close to the original. Yeah.
The history of movies is just basically rising to Ben-Hur and falling away from it. It's the pinnacle.
It's really good. And it's an epic, which is also, I think, a lost art,
That's true.
There's 3-hour movies, but they feel like 3-hour movies. Ben-Hur feels like an epic. And I even remember him kind of like prefacing it with that, like, this is really long. Like we're going to take, a break in the middle, but like, this is something that you really kind of have to go on the journey. So that's another one that I really associate with. And, the merits of Ben-Hur, everybody, I don't really have to defend that, but I remember again, just being, there's great acting in it. There's, there's real anger and jealousy and love in it. Like, it's a very like adult movie, but at the same time, like it's still gritty and real enough that when you're young, I was probably maybe like 11 or 12 when I saw that, but it's got the chariot race. It's got everything you need for an exciting movie. And that's another one I remember him sharing with us in that same way, like kind of announcing as like, okay, this is a significant thing that we need to, set aside time and actually do the experience. We're not just watching a movie.
That was like a whole genre too. Like I remember watching a ton of those movies as a kid. I remember coming down one day and my parents were watching one of them, and it was like lion. I was like 6 or something, and there were like lions tearing people apart.
Nice. You're like, what's going on?
What's going on? What are you watching?
Yeah, and I could throw in one more that I was talking about where it didn't work, and this is kind of a running joke in our family where he had recommended a movie called Brazil, which was a Terry Gilliam movie, who was one of the Monty Python guys.
Yeah,
he was it's hilarious, like it's so clever, like you guys are gonna love it. And that I think we watched with the whole family, but there's another one he hadn't seen in 25, 30 years. And that one I felt like did not hold up at all. And all of us were like, Dad, this is so freaking weird. Like, what are you talking? He was kind of like, yeah, this actually is pretty weird and creepy.
What is Brazil about?
I don't even remember, man. It was
that's awesome.
It was psychedelic in all the wrong ways, I felt like.
Okay.
And I couldn't even really tell you what the plot was. I just remember everybody kind of being, I don't think we finished it. Everybody was kind of like, yeah, no, this is not. And even he was kind of like, yeah, missed on that one. So that was the thing where like, it didn't have the carryover. It didn't have, maybe it was cool at the time, but it didn't have that timelessness that made it like a real dad movie.
What movie would you want your kids to associate with you?
Yeah. When I saw that, I thought of two, like one, a serious one, and one, a more goofy one. But I think those are both legitimate dad movie paths.
Absolutely.
I think the first one, which we watched together at some point, I believe, was In a Better World by Suzanne Bier. I think that's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. And I think the fact that even that the storyline has so much to do with fathers and sons in the movie, but fathers and their children, and kind of like intergenerational trauma and healing at the same time. Aside from the fact that I just feel like visually it's a beautiful movie. Like everything about it is like, there's a lot of color to it. Like there's a lot of like studio gloss to it, but it doesn't feel cheesy in any way. Like every bit of it just feels like it's there to amplify the human story that's going on. And I think aside from just the intrinsic value of the story, I think that type of presentation is the kind of movie I would want my kids to associate with a good movie. Like all the production techniques are in the service of teaching you something really profound about life. And I think that they're pretty timeless themes in terms of, revenge and forgiveness that are lessons everyone has to learn. And I think that movie teaches them well. And I think, the intergenerational aspect of the story, I feel like would make it even more of a dad movie for me. So that one for sure on the serious side. And I think on the comic side, I would have to go with School of Rock. Honestly.
Oh my gosh. Yes. School of Rock.
I just love that movie. And like, I acknowledge, it's just a fun movie, but I feel like there's a big part of me that's just a rebellious guitar guy that wants everybody to have a good time. And like, I feel like Jack Black just captures the spirit of that. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's just stick it to the man and rock out. But there's still like a real joy to it and a real fun to it. And, I feel like that's the side of my personality that I would definitely want to share with my kids. And to me, that's the kind of movie where you do want to not just watch it out of the corner of your eye, like you want to sit down and like enjoy it. So I would have to put that in as a dad movie for me as well.
Well, and it's made by your favorite director of all time. Did you know that?
Yeah, Linklater. I didn't know that for the longest time. That was like maybe in the last few years that I realized that. I was like, it makes so much sense. Like even with a plot, he's good,
Even with a plot, he's good.
Yeah, he can do it all.
Yeah, it's amazing. He can do it all.
Yeah.
I have never actually seen all of School of Rock.
Oh, really?
Can you believe that? Yeah.
No, you're missing out.
I guess so. If it's going to be one of the ones you want your kids to associate with you, I've got to see it.
Yeah, I feel like you'll see it. It's just fun. I mean, I feel like I've seen it probably. I mean, I even already shared that with like younger siblings because I'm the oldest. So I remember, like, I feel like I've been home like babysitting at points like in high school, and I was like, let's get School of Rock and watch it. So I feel like I've already had kind of that like, pseudo experience of already passing it down, and they loved it. And it was fun. Yeah. Like I already have that memory of like again, I think going to maybe a dying Blockbuster at that stage, but it was still there and decrepit but still standing. And
they were paying you to take movies rather than
right. They're like, please come in. Yeah. I think they were desperately trying to go with the video game rental at that time. It was the last gasp of Blockbuster, but it was still there. And I remember.
Do you remember when Blockbuster started like a Netflix type service? Right.
No.
So it was crazy. There was like a year overlap. So Blockbuster, right as Netflix was getting into streaming, I think Blockbuster had just started to get into like the video, like the sending videos to home. To people's homes, rentals, yeah. But then, like after a year of that, Netflix kicked off streaming, and Blockbuster was just like, "We're done."
Yeah, we're out.
Like they just gave up. It's like, all right, bye.
Yeah, okay, we can do DVDs in the mail, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, I don't remember that. We had one like 2 blocks away from our house, though. So like, it was a sad loss, because that was kind of part of the, part of our neighborhood, pretty much. And that would have been right at the end that we got School of Rock, but just that was one of my last memories of that ritual of going there, getting some candy, getting some popcorn, renting the movie, and coming back. And I think my parents were out of town or out at dinner or something. I was watching the kids, and we did School of Rock together. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I feel like I already felt motivated to pass it on, even in like mid high school. So I can't imagine I would withhold that from my kids. It'll stand the test of time for me, I think.
Dude, that's awesome. And that that explains so much of why you had that like dad energy. You're the oldest sibling, you're the oldest boy. You kind of led your family already to the promised land of School of Rock.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
great.
Yeah. I'm guiding them out there, parting seas and showing them the way. Yeah, for sure.
Imagine you like dragging Ruben along to Blockbuster, like, we're gonna watch School of Rock.
Yeah, he loved it. Yeah, he would have been maybe he would have been really little, like 6 or 7 or something like that. It was good times. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there a movie, or are there like a couple of movies that you associate with your father? Like, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are a lot of my dad. He singer, dancer, loves the old fashioned Hollywood style of thing. So it was really awesome for me to do La La Land, because that was a movie that he loved when it came out. And he was like, "You got to see this." And so watching, like, I can see why you love this, because the movies that we watched growing up we didn't watch a ton of movies as children, but things like White Christmas, or Singing in the Rain, or It's a Wonderful Life. We watched a lot of Christmas movies.
Yeah.
But
it feels like it was always Christmas when you were a kid, right? Like Christmas lasted for months.
It did. But I watched a lot of those things. What I also remember a lot was my dad going out of the way to watch movies with me that I wanted to see. Oh, really? Even if it wasn't necessarily things that he would be inclined to. He didn't love the orcs, but he still went and watched every single Lord of the Rings with me. And I just specifically remember being in the theaters and just like us freaking out at Return of the King with the big spider, with Shelob. And it just it was so gross. And I think he views it as a great movie. I don't know that he would have chosen to see it in theaters, but he knew that I really wanted to. And so he went and saw it with me. And same thing with Pirates of the Caribbean. That was our like dad-son time we had a TV in my parents' room that we watched the movies on, that we weren't sure that the younger kids could see. Yeah. It was great. So it was going out of his way to engage with me in the culture that I really wanted to see and really wanted to engage with. But then also just some of the bangers, some of the classics, like Star Wars came out when he was in, I guess, high school, grade school even. 76, I can't remember. I don't want to date my father though. But I remember those were spectacular movies to see that just I will have all these memories with, and even culminated with the passing on of the generation of Star Wars to the prequels, which they're maybe not quite so bad as some people say, but they have.
Are you a big fan of the prequels? Are you like you know what, these are good movies?
I just watched, so this is where I love cinema, and I love the way that the internet brings cinema to us in a certain ways. So I was like on YouTube, and now I realize why people get addicted to YouTube. I like, usually don't get on it, but I was watching like these memes of like, Padme and Anakin and 30-second minute videos. And then it went into one that was like a 5-minute video, and it was like Obi-Wan remembers or something. And I was kind of like, okay, like I don't really have 5 minutes of time. But I'll just watch this. And it was beautiful. It was just kind of the scene where Luke meets Obi-Wan in episode 4 right at the beginning. Ben Kenobi.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, really, I would encourage all listeners to go out and check it out. And I cannot remember what it's called, but it has millions and millions.
It's like Obi-Wan remembers.
Obi-Wan or has flashbacks or has deja vu or something. And it's stitching together of scenes from the Sir Alec Guinness, just the conversation between him and Luke about like, who is my father and how did my father die? And like, what is a lightsaber? Flashing back to the prequels, it framed the prequels in a way that cuts out the silliness, because there's definitely some silliness there, but also some joy in the pod racing, and it kind of holds like it doesn't have to be all this stiff and starched Star Wars. It just showed how much depth I think there was there, and how much you can tell the story in a way that you don't even really realize the significance until years later. So I still am really happy to, whenever those movies are on TV, I'll pop on the prequels.
Yeah. Well, they're on Disney Plus now, so if you've got Disney Plus, they're always on the TV. So you're just watching them all the time.
But then I have to choose. I like it when like big channels choose for.
I know.
But I definitely remember those.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of love about the fact that there are prequels and the fact that there are postquels. I just blanked on
sequels,
prequels
and sequels. There we go.
I think we should.
I also forgot too.
But I love that, and I will always associate those movies with my dad. And it's an awesome way of like those movies. I don't think will ever die. Like they are real cultural touchstones that mean so much to people across so many generations. And I get really happy when my kids know who Yoda is. And there's this simplicity and beauty to the original Star Wars, and I am always going to be excited to show that to my kids.
Have you shown your kids Star Wars at this point?
We haven't watched all of them. We've actually watched, they watched some Clone Wars with me.
Oh, really? Very
the
cool.
animated show.
Yeah.
And then it started getting a little bit darker, and actually led to amazing storytelling. Spectacular. Have you seen?
I've seen some of it. I've heard that it is actually pretty good.
It's some of the best storytelling that I've seen over the last year. I think the last 4 episodes of it, they kind of take place concurrently with episode 3.
Okay.
And it might be the best movie I saw this year, which is weird. It's crazy.
Really weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you want your kids to associate with you when it comes to movies? Like maybe that's more of a general question, because you're talking about how kind of what you sort of recognize with your father, what you had with your dad. He took the time to experience these sort of big events with you, and to be like, this is big. And he showed you the big stuff from when he was younger.
Yeah.
And what really resonated or really was impactful for you was the fact that he took that time and did stuff that he didn't really necessarily want to do of his own.
Wouldn't choose necessarily on his own.
Is that something that you hope to replicate with your own kids? Is there like a specific movie where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't care if no one remembers this. I want my kids to see it. Like
it's so weird, because I feel like it's tough to just pick one.
Yeah.
And then when I'm trying to pick one, it's like obviously Star Wars is going to be that. Like Lord of the Rings are going to be that.
Yeah.
And yet I get this weird sense of wanting to watch like the Marvel movies with them. And I don't exactly know why. Part of it I think might be is that I want them to know what is popular and be able to engage with people and be able to have a conversation about characters and be able to know the way that different characters were portrayed and see the different archetypes of hero or villain. Because I think being culturally literate is a really pretentious way of just saying I want them to know what's up.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I like that, and I have a real desire to. I want to see what they want to see. We still haven't taken our kids to theaters. Probably that's partially because of this thing called COVID over the last
What's
2
that?
years.
I've never heard of it.
It's an acronym for a really fun thing that's going on.
Yeah.
It's
Come
this trend.
over, very
interesting dude.
great.
Wow. That wasn't supposed to work out that way.
That was amazing.
That's actually the way that you texted me. Like, come over, very interesting dude.
That's what I say. That's what I say to people when I want them to come over. Maybe we've all just been misreading it. Fauci's been saying COVID.
Have fun with COVID.
He wanted to make a new acronym. All right,
he just wants to have friends.
That's fun.
So we still have it, and I was thinking about like what kind of movies would I like to see with them, because I took my brothers to go see things like, I remember my brother taking him to see Frozen when he was just like a little kid.
Oh yeah,
and then he was like so happy that he got to go see a movie that like some of my other brothers hadn't. And then, of course, he was just like pooping all over it later on. I was like, I never liked that movie. I was like, that's not what I heard, John Paul. You were ranting about Olaf when we came back.
I like how you put that into a recording, so that's going to go on the internet forever.
Yeah,
that's great.
I've told this to him in person too. So I really am excited to engage with what they are. I guess because it has to be some give and take too. You share something about yourself, and whether that is a superhero movie or like a dinosaur movie or a stupid movie like Hot Rod, that's the most amazing movie ever made.
Is that the one? Okay.
I think when they're older, yes.
Yeah. So I guess like a further question I have is like, so I feel like there might be one or two movies that my kids associate with me that other people would be like, why? Yeah. Like I've never heard of that movie, or like it's just me.
Yeah.
Is Hot Rod, you're like, that's mine?
I think it might be.
Yeah, okay.
Because like that is one of the movies that at least my wife associates with me, first of all. I think it was one of the movies that we watched on like
I associated
one of our
with
first
you.
dates. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why. It's so funny.
That's awesome.
My safe word will be whiskey. What? I just love that movie. So there's so much genius there. It's very quotable. Andy Samberg, he never gets old. Literally, he never gets old.
Yeah, I know. How old is he?
Botox has been great to him, or just good genes. I feel the same way about Tom Brady too.
Yeah.
But
he's got to deal with it.
That has to be one of those weird movies that I'm just like super excited that we'll be able to share at some point in time. But there's also like movies about fatherhood that I rant about people, that I rant to about people. Rant to people about. Thank you.
Rant about people too.
That's what you're going to. I'm like, dear movie, this is what I hate about
this
people.
This person is an asshole.
I could English. Like Place Beyond the Pines.
Oh yeah,
such a good movie. Yeah. And like I have shared that with other people, and they've like went and they've watched it on my recommendation, and they've come back to me and like, so why was I supposed to like that? I'm like, oh, it's this and this and this, and I'm realizing I want to like engage with them about with that movie and say like, oh, this is what I love. Like, did you notice this? And that's like one of the movies that it's a movie about fatherhood and generations of generational sin told in 3 parts. And sometimes it's not exactly clear how they overlap, especially in the last one until a little bit, but really a criminally underrated movie.
Oh yeah.
With such a stacked cast. You've got Ryan Gosling, you've got Bradley Cooper, you've got Eva Mendes, and just I remember like hearing about it once when it came out, and also a Bon Iver soundtrack, which The Wolves Part 1 and Part 2, one of the best endings to a movie. I think it might be the best song ending that I can think of. That is a movie that I think I will always watch and I will always want to share with people. And so that, like, of course, has to extend to children, has to extend to my kids.
Yeah.
So, there's always, the more I think about it, the more like you're trying to piece together, I don't know, who you are as a father and who you are as a person into encapsulating, like Hot Rod encapsulates what I hope is my silliness and my sense of humor, and just like
who you are essentially as a human being is Hot Rod.
Like
nothing more, nothing less.
I like to be able to say cool beans like a billion times in a row, and understand that there is like that. Just because something is comedic doesn't mean that it's not smart.
Yeah.
And what I also want to say with something like The Place Beyond the Pines, just because something is dark doesn't mean that it's like bad or evil.
Yeah.
Like that you can actually look into the darkness and the sadness and come out with something that is a real insight. And so it's, again, like going back to that idea of an opportunity for fathering, for parenting.
Cool.
So, yeah,
that's cool.
I hope that puts a little capstone on it.
Yeah, no, that's really good. It's the dark and the light. You know,
yeah,
the opinion, right? You need them both.
Yeah,
I like that.
Contrast.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
But what movie do you associate most with your father?
It's not Old Country for Old Men. I would say is I keep doing
Old Country for No Men.
Old Country for No Men.
This barren wastes.
Right. No. The movie I associate most with my father is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, wow.
With Clint Eastwood.
Mm-hmm.
Watched that. I think it was a year after we moved into California from Waterbury, Connecticut. So it was we're in the West all of a sudden. I had never seen California before growing up in New England.
It's a lot different.
I had never made a visit. Very, very different. Yeah. Climate, people, culture, all of it. Even architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Our house was built in 2008.
Oh, wow.
I had moved from a house that was built in 1920.
So you're saying the ceilings got higher for sure.
Much, much higher, yeah. And there were multiple bathrooms all of a sudden, which I thought was dope. So we had just moved to California. My dad became friends with a lot of the faculty, but he became friends with a lot of the new faculty that he had never met. One professor that was very, very new, and my dad quickly met him, and they became fast friends, and they both bonded over their love for spaghetti westerns. One night we had him over. We had him over to watch a spaghetti western, and he recommended Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Which,
I mean, he's really digging deep.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And we had cashews and stuff. They probably smoked cigars, although we might have been in bed by that time. Who knows?
Sure. That's a long movie.
It is very long. Yeah, over 3 hours, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my dad was very good about helping us as his children, helping us as kids kind of settle into this new Western place that we'd never been to, getting us acclimatized, if you will. He helped us meet new families in the community and make new friends. Because he played, along with my mother, of course, too, but since my father really made an effort, he really played this central role in getting the whole family just acclimatized to the West, to California. And since The Good, the Bad, the Ugly was one of the early movies I had seen, that year after moving.
How old were you?
I was only 13.
Wow.
I was 13.
I'm amazed you had the attention span for that movie. I mean, you had the attention span to listen to Lord of the Rings pre 6 years old, so I'm sure this was not a stretch. Your father's like, no, he can do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that comes from. Probably by no grace of mine. But in any case, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the top movie that I associate with, my father and starting this new track in life, living in California. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, I associate with my father quite a bit, but I also just associate it with my own coming of age, to an extent, because of the aesthetic similarities between the movie and this new environment I was suddenly kind of thrust in. You're no longer in the midst of forests and not seeing the sun 7 months out of a year.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's very, very dry. That summer we moved out in particular was very, very dry. I don't think it had rained in months and months.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the beginning of the big drought that lasted
till now, actually.
Yeah, basically 10 now, so a little over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a new environment that I'm in, and it's a new movie that matches this new environment. And this character he's tough enough and he's rugged enough to kind of deal with it.
Mhm.
And I thought, I kind of have to do that too.
You got to be like Blondie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You can't just sit in your room and wish you were home all day, or back home in my case. You have to explore and you have to make a name for yourself in some regard. And for me, that was making new friends in this new place, this new kind of desert. That's kind of the only other comment I'd make about that movie.
We're hitting it in a nice all-star fashion amongst the dad classics. I really like that. I had a very similar experience with Good, the Bad, the Ugly with my father. I saw it when I was also a late teen, but it was just him and me watching it, and it was I was locked in. I couldn't stop watching it. It's so long, and we started it quite late, like at 8:00 at night on like a Saturday.
Wow, that is a late start.
Yeah, I'm like 15 years old, and I remember
you're in for a long game at that point.
And he's kind of flagging, because it's my dad, and that's what dads do. They get tired during movies, and I couldn't have disagreed more. I was just so intensely focused. I can't wait to talk about Good, the Bad, the Ugly someday. But I want to ask you as a final question.
Sure.
What movie, projecting into the future, what movie would you like your children to associate with you? Because I know that we got a long time maybe before they would ever do that, but given all the movies that you have now, what do you think you'd pick?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I think no matter what answer I give, I'm going to be listening back to this and want to give a different answer. But to give one on the spot, I really think it would be Pirates of the Caribbean.
Nice,
first one. You have all these characters on the outskirts of the British Empire. And it is, I don't want to make this movie sound more serious than it is. It is a fun movie. It's a Disney movie, obviously. But you have all these characters kind of on the outskirts of society. It's very chaotic, but you still have this kind of overarching force of the British Empire. You have soldiers around in their redcoats and stuff. But in the midst of it all, you have a few people that really know what they want. You have Captain Jack Sparrow. You have Orlando Bloom's character,
Will Turner.
Will Turner.
Sorry, he does this weird thing with his T's. I don't know if I shouted it out in our episode on Pirates of the Caribbean, but Orlando Bloom has a way of pronouncing his T's. Instead of flicking his tongue off the roof of his mouth, he presses them against the back of his front teeth, and it annoys me, actually.
Upsets the hell out of you.
Yeah, his name is Will
really grinds your gears.
Turner. I can't do it. That's just an affectation that bothers me.
Yeah.
Oh, you have us! It's for you, Mike.
Now that you pointed out, I do think that is annoying as well. I hadn't thought about it, but it's true. Even as a kid, the kid actor kind of does that too.
He does.
It is annoying.
The Elizabeth Swann kid actor is way better.
But yeah, much better. In any case, you're in this setting of chaos on the outskirts of the British Empire. Nobody really knows what they're doing. Everybody's trying to make as much money and have as much sex as they can. Pirate's life for me kind of thing. Everybody's drinking, of course.
It's hedonism unbound. Yeah,
it is hedonism. Yeah. So I would choose Pirates of the Caribbean because, much like today, it's this chaotic scene, but you have these core 2 to 3 characters that kind of know what they want. They might be a little messed up. They're messed up. But they do know what they want, and they have a vision for their lives, and they go for it, and they have a great time doing it. And it's, to me, that movie says, just don't be lost. Find who you are, find what you want to do, and do it. You do want that drive. And that's what my father taught me to have, is drive. Stick to what you're doing. Stick to it and master it. Become a master at whatever you're doing, and you'll find happiness that way. The only other movie I want to throw in there, simply as a comparison to Pirates, is The Mummy.
Oh, Brendan Fraser?
Yeah. Great trilogy. I hold that up there with The Mummy, just in terms of amazing fun movies that I'll never forget from my childhood. Definitely another one I want to watch.
And it's almost the exact same in that 1 is a classic, 2 is a kind of a mess, 3 is like, what is this?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I like those a lot. That's a really good answer, especially with Brendan Fraser coming out.
Poor guy.
Yeah, he's coming out strong as the new Indiana Jones.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
And then
he had played Tarzan, right?
George of the Jungle.
Or George of the Jungle. Yeah, George of the Jungle.
George of the Jungle. But
he was ripped back then.
Now at this point, though, I mean, he's cast in the new Darren Aronofsky movie called The Whale, where he plays the titular whale, a 600-pound man who is slowly eating himself to death.
Wow.
And we have gotten here since, I think, 1999, which is the first Mummy.
Yeah.
And now it's 2021. And the action star that should have been is now in a Darren Aronofsky movie about a man trying to kill himself by eating. Like, what happened?
Well, he went through terrible. By the time The Mummy 3 came out, his body was disintegrating.
Mm-hmm.
He had gone through way too much physical trauma to remain intact. I remember I read some interview. I think it was from Rolling Stone about a couple weeks ago, where he was basically asked that same question: "What the hell happened to you, Brendan? Why are you like a overweight kind of cowboy now? That's weird. Why did you disappear for
years,
7, 8, 9 years, And he said, well, my body was disintegrating by the time The Mummy 3 came out. And during that shoot, he said, I was duct taping ice packs to my limbs and my torso just to compress my muscles, because otherwise I would be pulling muscles left and right. And I was in and out of the hospital after that set. And then he went through this messy divorce. That's kind of where the meme comes from. Just F my ass up, fam.
Yeah.
Cruel meme, but kind of funny.
Yeah.
And since then, he's been living on a ranch basically as a cowboy, taking care of horses. And I think he's recovered.
He's coming back appearance in Doom Patrol,
Yeah, that's right. But it doesn't surprise me that he's kind of into this movie that you just mentioned, playing morbidly obese man that's
trying to kill himself.
Dying. Yeah. Not that that's where I think he is mentally. I don't think he is.
It seems like a space that maybe he'd want to explore now that people aren't looking at him as a Harrison Ford replacement.
Exactly.
Maybe he can, actually be respected as an actor, which people haven't done since the early 90s, maybe. Like, it kind of ended with Encino Man.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a great pull. I would love to discuss The Mummy someday. Maybe discuss it with you. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it's another good death movie.
What sort of movies do you associate with your father?
With my father, I associate sort of the family movies that we would watch on our Saturday movie night. It was always pizza, Coke, Raisinets, popcorn, and a movie. And so typically the ones that kept popping up are Lord of the Rings, always extended. Mm-hmm. We'd often...
As is right and just.
We'd often, start it too late, and then we'd all just drop off or lose interest. And I'd often realize that I was falling asleep, so I would get up and go do something and try to hype myself up so that I could stay awake for the whole thing. Or it's Monsters, Inc. or The Incredibles or Ratatouille is actually my dad's favorite Pixar movie.
Mm-hmm. As is mine.
Yeah. Or Star Wars. Just, those kind of wholesome family movies that we all probably grew up on or have experienced and loved. So those are the big ones. But more recently, with my dad, just me and my dad, I've gotten into some more adult films like Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh yeah.
I watched it with my friends first, and then I said, "Oh, Dad, you got to see this. Come on." And we watched it, and he just was flabbergasted and said, "That's probably in my top 3 of all time."
Wow.
As it is in mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those Mad Max. Yeah.
That's a really good run. Ratatouille is very big in my heart. I've watched this at least at this point a couple times with my daughter. I can't get away from it. Yeah. It is still the most engaging, original Gonzo concept.
Absolutely.
Like, we got a rat wants to be a chef. Got this garbage boy who doesn't want anything.
Yeah.
The rat can control the garbage boy with his hair. Like, what are we doing?
It's kind of amazing because two things about Ratatouille is that was coming from a time in Pixar's history when they didn't know if they were going to keep working with Disney. They had 5 movies originally, and that was right at the very end of that. So that you can tell they're kind of just doing whatever they wanted. So they had Ratatouille, WALL-E, and Up 3 years in a row.
Yep.
And then also Ratatouille, they fired the director.
Yep.
And they had to completely start over, basically.
Yep.
Brad Bird came on right after he finished The Incredibles, and they redid everything. And it's just, it's already amazing on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that just makes it so, it's amazing.
It is amazing because a sequence I'm remembering very, very well is when they have the soup, the soup alla linguine, right? That goes out. That is the original soup that Linguini like kind of messed up, and then the rat fixes, and it's a hit, and it kind of brings Gusteau's back into its former glory. People are reviewing it better, and then the chef Skinner decides that he is going to sort of F with Linguini's career plan, even though Linguini has no career plan or any plans whatsoever, and he throws him sweetbreads a la Gusteau. And it's this incomprehensible recipe that sounds disgusting.
It's revolting.
Like, I can't even imagine what this would taste
tentacle,
like. And white fungus.
anchovy licorice sauce.
I just don't like this. Well, it is a recipe. We will follow it. No, don't follow it. And that's what the rat does. The rat does not follow it. He changes the sauce at the last minute. And I love the constant back and forth between the love interest and Linguini when they're fighting and shouting and screaming.
Yep.
And she asks him when he blocks her hand from putting the sauce on. And she goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, Nothing, I'm not doing anything. As his other hand involuntarily pours a different sauce onto it, and it goes out.
Yep.
And there's the bated breath in the kitchen of everyone waiting to see what's going to happen. Ratatouille is just fantastic. It's kinetic. It's so engaging.
It's beautiful, and it's like a gourmet meal.
Yeah. You feel completely satisfied once it's over.
It's a delight for the senses.
And in a different way, I think that Mad Max Fury Road satisfies something different. I will save my story of how I came to Mad Max Fury Road for when we do the pod on it.
Right.
But what I do remember is feeling incredibly revolted and very put off by the movie. I felt like I had been pushed to my extreme level, which at this point now, I am waiting for it. But back then, it wasn't so hard to do. And that movie pushed me really, really far.
Mm.
And it was so exciting, though. And that's what felt like alluring about it, is it felt a little bit forbidden because of how extreme it was.
Yeah, I saw it with a friend of mine. And actually, when I first saw the trailer, it was in like the last Hobbit movie or something. So I was there with my family and a bunch of other friends. And this trailer comes on, and it's just images and music. There's barely any dialogue. And I just remember thinking, okay, I'm absolutely going to see this. And everyone else was going, oh, gross, what is that? Mm-hmm. And I saw it with my friend, and we were just giddy the entire time. Mm-hmm. I can't remember laughing as much in a movie as I've laughed in Mad Max Fury Road. It's not a funny movie. It just made me giddy, lightheaded. Mm-hmm. It's so
intoxicating, right? Yeah, those are really good picks, and I like that you are able to associate your father with two very exciting and fairly recent pieces of cinema. I mean, I know your father, and he is accepting of this. You know, he wants to be on board with stuff like this, and wants to engage. Yeah, that's really cool. Very good picks. Yeah. I like those. What would you want your kids to associate with you in the same way that we've been talking about this, given that we are in the year 2021 and that, you don't have any kids currently?
Nope.
And there's a lot that can change between now and future. Like, you're only looking at 2021 and past. So what of those movies would you want them to associate with you?
It's kind of funny that the ones that I most associate with my dad are some of the more recent ones.
Yeah.
I would probably go back to 12 Angry Men, I think, because that's another one I saw with my family, and I don't think they were really as into it as I was. Mm-hmm. But I just remember thinking, this is the...
I mean, how dare they?
Yeah.
First of all.
course, yeah. It's so well made, and it's so exciting and so intense. And I was just... It's it's not a thriller, but it's kind of like that, where I'm just sitting there clutching the armrest, I'm sweating, Mm-hmm. And it's kind of important too. Mm-hmm. I'm not I wouldn't describe myself as super political, but I love America, and I love how that movie is a little glimpse into, the justice system and all that. And I think that one's really important and really good, and also just, a perfect movie. Mm-hmm. If I had to say another one, I might say Gravity. because I'm also, 12 Angry Men takes place in one room. It's black and white, and it's just these characters talking. And then Gravity is Gravity. It's outer space. It's an epic in every way.
In so many ways, though, it's so much more isolated, right?
Yeah.
Like 12 Angry Men, it is, these 12 people, but these 12 people like are a community.
Mm.
And Gravity is so much more lonely.
Yeah.
And so much more about just the struggle of one person.
Mm.
This is an incredible juxtaposed pick.
Yeah.
I really like this. There's a lot of contrast.
Yeah, and I read a comment recently of someone like on YouTube or something who said Gravity was actually in a book. Gravity is like a religious experience for me. And I completely felt the same way. It just moved my soul in a way that I can't even really describe. But I kind of similar to Mad Max in how I was just there, present, completely engaged the entire way through. And it's like my mind was opened. And that sense of wonder, I think, and the grandeur that movie is trying to portray, and I think does very well, is something that I absolutely can't wait to pass on.
Yeah. That the experiential side, right?
Yeah.
And the relief that you feel when you see like Sandra Bullock, who has taken off her armor kind of right from the battle, and is floating as in utero. Yeah. In the perfectly framed in the window of the space station, floating.
The oxygen turns on, so you hear the sound again, and you just hear it go.
Yeah. The moment,
and that's what everyone does that day. Everyone just goes, okay, we're good.
I can exist. Those are very good answers.
So what from the past 2 years do you consider a dad movie?
Well, I guess I already said something.
Little Women?
No, that's a
mom movie. All right, Little Women's a mom movie.
1917.
Yeah, I guess it came out 2019. So that's probably the past 2 years.
All right. Am I allowed to say Hamilton? It's not a movie.
It
but it
technically
did come
is.
out in movie form, kind of.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, okay. Definitely hits humor. Definitely hits sacrifice. Definitely hits strength.
Who's the strongest character in Hamilton?
Eliza.
I think that's probably right, but yeah. Hamilton's not really strong, he's more just determined.
Yeah, I guess there's a difference there. I think that he exhibits strength later in his life. At least the way they portray him. Because he changes his life completely after his son is killed. And there's a certain strength that comes from that. And just getting through a tragedy like that and continuing on with your life. Not just giving up. Anyway, that also strikes me as one.
Bonus question. What's an ultimate dad movie?
I don't know, Braveheart? I probably don't have super strong opinions about this.
Because of its humor?
Yeah, that one would be pretty low on the humor. Oh, what's that movie we watched where the guy's helping his friend escape? Or they have to, like, run from one point in the war to another point. And they have a really short amount of time, and they're running through the trenches.
Oh, 1917?
1917.
Again, humor. Lots
There's
of humor.
a little bit of humor there somewhere, if you look for it.
I'm glad you think that's a dad movie. That's what I said, too.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
When? Oh, like when you...
In our list somewhere.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a dad, so I don't know if I think about this too often. Probably regretting having me interviewing me right now.
All right. Well, thank you, Liz, for joining us. This has been a pleasure. We should do this.
Joining you.
Joining me. And us, collectively. The collective we. The royal we, as the dude would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
So what movie in the past 2 years would you really call a dad movie?
Well, let me look at my list of movies I've seen this year, because I can just pull them all up. I really like The Father. I don't know... I mean, the name, The Father.
Speaking of Anthony Hopkins, yeah.
For those who haven't seen it, it's a movie about someone going through Alzheimer's, losing their memory. Mm-hmm. And it's a super, super moving, powerful movie. In my opinion, Anthony Hopkins' greatest performance. I don't know if it's a dad movie, though. But
that's the thing.
It might be the best movie I've seen in the last 2 years.
Okay.
That or Sound of Metal, I think.
I do love Sound of Metal and would call that a dad movie. Like, I want my kids to see that someday.
Yeah, yeah. And I think they're similar in a way that both those movies give you a really intimate insight into a world that is usually closed off to people. So obviously with Alzheimer's, no one experiences Alzheimer's except for the person experiencing it, and everyone else, that person is just forgetting everything, which can range from really sad to annoying to the people around them. But that the movie really portrays that terror and that confusion in a way that most people don't see. I think Sound of Metal does something similar, where it takes us into the eyes of someone who's going deaf. And you get that really personal experience. And I think that personal experience that seems really genuine and true is what makes great movies.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
that's a good answer.
I think Mike mentioned this the other day when we were on the podcast, that art is all about, experiencing lives apart from your own, right? It's experiencing lives that you can't.
Yeah, that was on Vito's birthday episode.
Yeah,
talking
that's right.
about the raid.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Or I guess this will have already come out.
It's already out now.
Yeah.
Have you not listened to it?
I have, that's right. All right.
What series? Because on Not Your Father's Movies, you always do a series of movies. What series would you want us to do in particular?
I wish I had more time to think about this.
I shouldn't have sprung it on you.
Let's see. You've done it seems like you've done some of the big powerhouses. You guys have done detectives and you've done cowboys.
Oh, we're only doing modern cowboys.
That's true.
We're going to do past cowboys too.
Yeah. Oh, here's one that I don't think you guys have really touched on, and it's a genre that I really love, is gangster movies.
Oh,
I love some gangster movies, Oh,
it's got Public Enemy.
Yeah. Maybe some Guy Ritchie movies.
But yeah, we do need to do a gangster movie.
Yeah. It seems like that's one of the
classic dad.
It's a classic dad genre. There's cowboys, there's detectives, there's World War II, and there's gangsters. These are the. I guess maybe another one would be post-apocalyptic movies.
Oh. All right, yeah. All right, that's perfect. So post-apocalyptic is the new dad genre. That is now firmly established as dad.
Yeah.
And the other one, gangster, also firmly established as classic dad.
Yeah.
So new and classic dad series. I like that.
There you go.
Yeah. Got to pitch it.
And I'm sure there's a lot of permutations that you could do, modern gangster movies, or you could do, within the apocalypse, you could do zombies, you could do, I guess all the other ones are less interesting. Like weather apocalypses are maybe less fun.
Yeah.
Alien apocalypses. There's a lot of subgenres.
2012 is the weather apocalypse. Also the day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not great.
Not great. It seems like the classic apocalypse movies are zombie, alien, or
disease,
or like man-made destruction, like Mad Max. We destroy ourselves through some vague act of war.
Oh, Fury Road is a great post-apocalypse movie.
Yeah, that would be a fun one to listen to. Yeah,
that's a great action movie.
It is.
Yeah, so much fun.
Yeah.
All right. What movie that came out in the last 2 years would you call a dad movie?
Okay. Because I was, if the question was what was the best dad movie, then I would have to keep searching. But if I can just pick any dad movie that came out in the past 2 years, Nobody. Starring Bob Odenkirk. That is absolutely a dad movie. he's an ex CIA badass or whatever, and somebody messes with his family, and he has to go out and do what he does.
Where's the motherfucking kitty cat bracelet?
That's like what? How else would you define a dad movie other than a super badass dad asking for a kitty cat bracelet? That is a dad movie in my opinion. Like
Fantastic.
I said, you can picture a dad rewatching that, fall asleep on the couch because it's whatever, it's fine. It's not the bestest movie in the world, but you've seen it before. You know what's going to happen. You can fall asleep on the couch watching it. That's a dad movie.
Perfect. I fully agree. That's a dad movie. This dad sat on a couch. It was 8:30 on a Wednesday. I started that movie up
late. That's dark hours. I got to work the next day. 8:30 is pushing
it. But by the time 10:30 rolled around, I'm getting sleepy. But I'm in it watching. Spoilers for the movie. Nobody. I'm watching Christopher Lloyd blow dudes away with like a shotgun. I'm like, this is fantastic. I'm having the best time. My wife is like in the other room. I think she was sewing something, and all she's hearing is like, ah, ah. She's like, you having fun? I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I am.
Indeed. Absolutely a dad movie. Came out in the last 2 years. I win. What is my prize?
You win. Your prize is that we get to use this interview. And I will also have to find a way to get a shirt to you. It's just the fact that your logo is like copyright infringement.
A little bit. Nobody sent me a letter, so I'm gonna keep writing it out.
I love it. The company didn't love it, but fuck the company.
If you're listening and you're wondering what the logo looks like, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, My Movie Fix Podcast.
And I've heard that recently, you achieved great Twitter fame, and so people want to come and check that out as well. My Movie Fix Podcast at Twitter, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the time of this recording, I have 9 followers, but I might be at 10 by the time you guys listen to this. So you might not get followed back because right now I'm pretty much following everybody back to be courteous. But once we start to get into double digits, I can't keep up with everybody. So you can follow me, may or may not follow you back. I'm kind of a big deal at this point, but you can try your luck, Yeah, at My Movie Fix Pod on Twitter, My Movie Fix Podcast at gmail.com, and the podcast is called My Movie Fix.
And you will be seeing Sirr on our feed quite a lot in the coming months. And yeah, thank you for sitting down for this interview, man.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me be a part of what you guys are doing. I appreciate it.
We are the better for it. Thank you.
See.
What movie have you seen in the last 2 years that you would call a dad movie?
Because I'm trying to think. Hey, I don't want to count the Paw Patrol movie. I had to watch with my grandson, with my nephews. That was awful.
Making a good amount of money.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? My nephew actually asked me. They're coming to Cape at the Show Me Center, and he's just like, "You want to go see that with me, Daddy?" Or not Daddy, Uncle Davey. And I was just like, no. No. Okay, so I would say, okay. It just came to me that it's something I really liked, but I know it's probably not going to be a really popular point. I know. Okay, hear me out. Okay. So I actually watched Hook for the first time in probably 15 years, 10 years, something like that. I found it on Amazon Prime, and I think I bought it, and I forgot how much. I think I had watched it. It was pretty recent. It was right a little bit after. I think I thought about it because recently, Robin Williams has been popping back up in the news because it's his anniversary of his death and things like that. And I was looking at it. I love Robin Williams as an actor.
Sure.
And the man, he had such a range. People always, remember he's so funny. No, the man was an amazing, just actor and an amazing person in general too, right?
For my money, maybe the most dad of dad actors.
Absolutely
incredible,
right? And when you go into this movie Hook, it didn't make a lot of money when it first came out. It actually bombed quite a bit, but it whenever Spielberg had that idea, like, I want to take that after story of what happens if Peter Pan decides not to go back, right? And he becomes a dad, but then, he gets drawn back into the world by Hook stealing his kids and things like that. And that's the only thing that could get Peter Pan to go back to Neverland, right? Was his kids. And I remember watching that, and I'm like looking at things, and I'm like, God, this thing is just gorgeous. The scenes are gorgeous, but at the same time, it's also like, it's not just about like him going back and finding his kids. It's kind of about him reconnecting with himself, essentially. Because we all kind of go through that, right? We all get into that mundane of everyday life, and we kind of just get caught behind the numbers, get stuck behind the job, miss things like baseball games, right? The championship game. But eventually we have to come back to what's most important, right? Which is like our family, and that's, I just vividly remember watching that. It was about a year and a half ago. I totally forgot I'd watch it, which is why it spent me 15 minutes trying to think about it. So, but when I clicked, it just clicked. That synapses fired. But I remember sitting down and watching it, and I actually rewatched it again at about another 4 months ago with my dad. And he hadn't seen it in years either. And he's just sat, and it's one of the first movies I'd actually seen him stay awake for in the last, 5 years. So right. It's usually, he falls asleep usually about 30 minutes in, because that's usually how he falls asleep. But he actually stayed awake for it, and he watched it. And as I'm sitting there, my son is in my mom and dad's house. The way it's set up, they have a sunroom as it leads into the house, a big one where they have the TV at, and then you go into the next room, like an inner room, and it's a playroom. And my son is in there playing, and I guess he hears us watching this, and he comes in and he sits down with me, right? And he sits and starts watching with me. And then the nephews come in and they start sitting down and watching with it. And it all clicks, right? Like, that's the reason why it made sense to me right then. Is you have 3 generations of guys essentially, bonding over a film, that, I mean, for better or for worse. I mean, maybe it was a great film, maybe it was an awful film, but for us, it's something that's connecting us, right? Right. So that's what really clicked me. And then my wife came in and she's like, "Oh, you're all sitting there rotting your brains,
We're bonding. Get out!
Get out! Leave us alone. This is emotion time." But yeah, that's it just totally clicked, and I completely forgot about it until you brought that up. Wow, holy crap! But I can remember just sitting there with my dad as he's sitting there drinking his big gulp of iced tea that's got about 2 pounds of sugar in it, that I'm pretty sure gave him diabetes at some point in his life, but who knows? And we're all just sitting there and the kids are just watching. But yeah, that's what I can remember. Yeah.
Nice.
God. Yeah, Jesus. Dustin Hoffman's a great Captain Hook. So that time God, that's a great cast, isn't it though?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry. I kind of got sidetracked in there. That was good. That was a good question, man. It made me think really, really hard, and it actually made me kind of induce some anxiety on me a little bit. So I hope you're happy with yourself. Yeah, there you go.
Very happy, very proud. I feel like I've done the Lord's work today in bringing out that memory, because, dude, that's exactly what I wanted. That's all I wanted, a genuine memory. And thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it.
You're like, it only took you 20 minutes.
I'm okay with that. I'll cut it all out. Or I'll leave it in. I don't know. It could be really funny.
She's like, wow, that's a lot of dead space in there. Why does he hum in Hanson? What the fuck, man? Like, we don't like this guy. We're definitely not coming over to his podcast.
Well, I have to say that for all of us, it was just a real pleasure getting to know you over this next year, and we look forward to the years coming forwd. And I look forward to being on your show every time. I'm like, I just get the itch. I want to talk about some weird thing. We can't seem to work it in. I'm like, David, you got any more of that pod, man? Can I have some more of that?
Yeah, man. I need a fix. And the only thing I can do is go to somebody else's podcast. My friends refuse to talk about video games.
Yes, they do,
man.
They do. And then the movies that they refuse to talk about, I now go to Sirr, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you wanna talk movies? Like, you wanna do like a multi-part series on something?"
Sirr's like, "Dear God, dear God, help me. What have I done?"
Look at this poor crack addict here. This poor movie addict. This poor culture addict.
That's very true.
But anyway, as always, delightful to talk to you. Thank you for joining us on our anniversary.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Do you want to come on in the future?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
I got a mic, I got headphones, I got time. Yeah. I'm always down to talk about movies.
And you've always got a mic.
Got 2 mics. Yeah, I love it.
if you were to choose a movie to do on our podcast, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, yeah, there are a lot of options.
It could be like The Forbidden Planet. If you want it to be,
you know, actually, that would actually be a really good one.
or Waking Life. Like,
oh, yeah, actually, yeah, Waking Life.
Yes.
You know
Vito,
what,
Vito, we got to do Waking Life next time. Sorry.
I would, if you do Waking Life, I'm so on.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like that one will go into outer space pretty quickly, but that's one of those ones that like I would love to have a real conversation about it because so many people, especially my family, trash that movie, and I love it. It's so important to me. Only my brother Ruben gets it. Everyone else thinks it's navel gazy garbage, and like, okay, that's an aspect of it, but I still think it's worthwhile.
Isn't that what makes it worthwhile? How navel gazy, garbagey? I mean, it's got Alex Jones in it, for crying out loud.
Yes, like early Alex Jones,
early
like
Alex
90s Alex Jones. Yeah, talk about a time capsule.
It's amazing,
and he hasn't changed all that much. Really, it was impressive. Maybe another one. I think I might have mentioned this to Vito at some point, but like when I was thinking more of like kids movies was The Never-Ending Story.
Ooh, yeah.
I feel like that would be good. That would be a good candidate as well that I would talk about for sure.
Okay. We haven't done a kids movie in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking. It's like shifted more into like adult, but that's one I feel like that has like a heavy dose of existential angst for a kids movie. And I remember feeling it as an already existentially inclined kid and be like, what? Damn, like, you know, this is heavy. So that would be another candidate if you wanted to do a kids movie. But yeah, any of those, I'd be down for sure.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna do a Dave series. It's gonna be The Forbidden Planet, Waking Life, and The Never-Ending Story. There we go.
Yeah,
that's what's coming up next.
A trilogy, if you will.
Trilogy.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've got the surprise question.
All right.
What movie that has come out in the last 2 years would you call a dad movie? And I guess it can't be Nomadland because you already said that was a dad movie. Right. But I'm gonna modify it because I know you don't see a lot of new releases to say what movie that you've seen in the last 2 years, if it's a new movie or something that's new to you.
It's not a newly released movie, but I feel like it never got the attention it deserves. So I feel like it's still new in terms of like how many people have seen it. And we may have talked about this at one point. Take Shelter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You've brought that up a lot. I still haven't seen it.
It's incredibly good. And I actually rewatched it just this past year. I had seen it maybe 8 or 9 years ago. I think it's from like 2011, 2012, something like that.
Okay.
And it's got Michael Shannon and Jessica Chastain.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's absolutely totally about family and being a father for one. And it's about a lot of things. I mean, it's got elements of suspense and a little bit of horror in it too, but it's also a beautiful story about family and about what it means to be a father and this guy grappling with it. And I think the performances of both Michael Shannon and Jessica Chastain are like truly tremendous. And it handles the topic of mental illness in a really profound way, not in a kitschy way. It really, I think, gets at the heart of the matter, is from what I can tell. So I would consider that a dad movie. Absolutely. It's not recent, but I don't recall it getting much attention. It was just kind of a, and I think we went and I think I saw it like when I was home for Christmas, and it was just, there was just kind of this like small time theater we would sometimes go to that had interesting movies. And I saw it with a couple of members of my family there. We both walked out like, wow, that was something else. So I would consider that a dad movie for me for sure.
Cool. What, is there like a basic plot structure or anything that you can share? Or would you say go in without knowing anything?
No, you can go. The basic idea is, there's this guy, middle America, Ohio or somewhere. He's like a, working class guy. He works on an oil rig or mining or something like that. And seems like he's got kind of, your basic American dream going on. He's got a nice little house, beautiful little girl who she's deaf, but he got promoted at his job and he got a new health insurance package and they'll pay for cochlear implants. And so they're getting ready to get that surgery for her. And it seems like everything's going well, but then he soon starts having these really intense and realistic nightmares about people that he loves or people that he knows who are trying to kill him or trying to hurt him in some way. And
oh wow.
he starts getting this deeper and deeper sense of foreboding that something really bad is coming. And he keeps having dreams about these really distant storms, like huge storms that are coming in to wipe everything out. And he starts getting really worked up about this, and he starts fixating on redoing an old decrepit tornado shelter that's in his backyard. And he starts obsessively spending too much money, like digging it out and turning it into this like bunker. And everybody thinks he's going nuts, and his family's freaking out. But the whole time there's this in the back of his mind, he knows that his mom had been diagnosed with schizophrenia at right around the same age as he is right now. So he's trying to understand, like, have consciousness of like, am I developing schizophrenia? Like, am I going crazy? Or am I, but he, with the sense of feeling that there really is something bad coming, and he needs to protect his family from it. And it goes from there.
Cool. That sounds fantastic.
It's a beautiful movie. Yeah. And the way that he balances that, middle America, Joe the plumber guy, with also this deep sense of fear and wariness about what's coming. I think it captures a feeling, I think, even just in a more basic sense of like that. A lot of times if things are going really well for you, there's kind of that nagging voice in the back of saying like, this is going to fall apart. It can't last. That this is too fragile. So I think it captures, there's a lot of things going on in it. But cool. It's absolutely worth seeing. I highly recommend it.
Sounds a little scary. Sounds a little scary to me. Like, I don't know if I want to go into that headspace.
It is. It could have been really scary. I mean, it is kind of scary. No question.
I mean, yeah.
But I think it's handled in such a good way that, I think it says the right thing about all those issues, in my opinion.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see it because you've told me many times that I need to see that. So it's now high on the list. Every time someone tells me to see something, it goes higher on the list.
Okay. Well, I advocate for that. I think you'll love it. I think, okay. I think anybody who likes movies will enjoy that for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for hopping on and talking to me about some of the dad movie stuff we've got here. We're really looking forward to having you on again in the very near future.
Appreciate it. And congratulations and happy anniversary.
Thanks, man. Good night.
All right. Take care.
Is there a movie that you've seen in the last 2 years for the first time?
Yeah.
That you're like, this is a surprising dad movie. Like if you just saw, I don't know, Gladiator, like that doesn't count.
Oh,
everyone knows
so good.
If you just saw that, like, what's wrong with you? But,
yeah.
But that's always going to be a dad movie.
That's a really good.
It's got to be something like I don't know, something.
That's a really good question.
Unexpected or something like.
So there were actually 2020. I felt like had a couple.
Okay.
So Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh, okay.
Like I popped on that movie not thinking that it was going to be anything.
Yeah.
And I like got emotional at the end. And I watched it in like the worst circumstances, like on a plane. I think I had a baby on my lap, and I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, that was an incredible movie, and kind of ticks all the boxes for being a dad movie, like cars, engines,
Christian Bale and Matt Damon.
Right?
Yeah.
And like a dude who is struggling to put like food on the table for his family, but balance passion too, and is really good at something. And like, I think every dad wants the idea of you understand something, you've committed so much that you understand something better than anyone else in the world. He understood that car. Christian Bale's character understood that car better than anyone. And so it was like a matter of, it was right for him to be the one to drive it and beat Ferrari. And then at the same time teaching lessons about, wow, the call came in that they were all going to cross the finish line together. And I was like, damn it. Like, it feels like the world is unjust. Like this is terrible. And I was like, why did you get that vitriolic reaction that you just can't help but feel like, even if it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, like everyone knew that he was the winner. I'm like, no, I wouldn't have known how good he was unless that story was told.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beautiful part about like a lost piece of history that could have been lost forever.
Yeah.
Except that somebody took the time to
tell the story.
I love that.
So my last question for you tonight, Chris, is if you could choose any movie to do, what would it be to do on this podcast as a dad movie?
I would like to do something like the new Star Wars or things where you can like delve deeper into it and say like, why does this work or why doesn't this?
Yeah.
Like that's as we're growing up and
dude,
like, engaging with movies in a way that's like you can actually say, is Jar Jar Binks a Sith Lord? And at the same time say like, well, what does it mean for Rey to be X, Y, or Z? And I love that aspect of sequels.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, we've been stewing in it for 30 years at this point. It's wild.
It's something ferments and comes alive.
Yeah.
I would love to do new Star Wars, even if everyone else hates it, because I would pony up for conversations like that.
We've been talking about how we could do that and like what the best way to do it, whether we should start, like, should we do just 9 episodes in a row?
Oh my God. But you got to do it at some point.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm glad to know you're there for when we do Star Wars.
Also,
and
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse
might be my main one. Like,
okay.
I would just...
we actually did it earlier this year.
Did you guys?
One of those,
Okay.
Yeah, you should check it out. I always feel, though, like with something like that, I hope someday we're able to come back around to it again.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those movies where it ages with you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like I'm going to come back to it. And I can't wait to see how that impacts my children.
Yeah.
And how 100%. That's going to, because for me, like, I'm already a full grown adult.
Yeah.
And so, like, I change less and less. I think they'll experience it more and more.
It was on TV the other day, and Steph and I were like, this is so good. We are both so excited to be able to show it to them.
That's awesome.
And still little young.
A little young, yeah.
Because it is a little bit scary, and the music could be pulsating.
All right. When do you think they're gonna, like, your kids are gonna be ready?
Maybe just a few more years. I could see my 4-year-old being like,
The Prowler is the thing that, like, for me, I keep thinking like, oh, you know what, it could be okay. Like, I could just step in front of the screen for that, but the Prowler is like the uncle who betrays him. Like,
that family betrayal is hard.
And
because you're like, it's the cool uncle that he always related to more so.
Yeah.
But then the fatherhood elements where he actually rekindles that relationship with his dad. And his dad is like,
it's beautiful.
Like, get up, Spider-Man, get up.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, so that's a weird one to think about. But all I know is that whenever I show it to the kids, I will be so excited to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And I will always love to talk about it with people.
All right.
Awesome.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Thanks for talking about yourself.
A lot of things.
I love talking about you. This is great.
I love talking about me too.
Yeah.
Probably more so than I should.
Thank you for letting us try in the spotlight.
This is awesome. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Vito. Thanks, Jesse.
And from all of us here in Mike's garage.
Hello.
Good night.
If you could be on one episode of Not Your Father's Movies, because it's criminal you haven't been on one yet, but you went through a rigorous program, and
that's right.
And I didn't call you. But if you could be on one episode, what would it be? What movie?
Oh man, I am partial to Reservoir Dogs. I know I had already said it's not a dad movie. I just love it.
That's a season 35, 40 of Not Your Father's Movies.
Yeah, it's when the kids of the fathers hosting the show are now fathers. Something like that. Yeah, Reservoir Dogs. I love any kind of Quentin Tarantino movie. No Country for Old Men. I said it right that time. I would love to talk about that. That says so much about philosophy, modern and ancient. It says a lot about America. That's a Titanic film. Mm-hmm. It's Titanic, absolutely Titanic. If I really had to come down to it, it would be that film. I would want to be on a episode for that one.
Nice. And then last question, more of a fun question.
Hmm.
If you had to right now say, without a doubt, that a movie in the last 3 years is a dad movie, what would you say? I'm calling you to the carpet. Maybe it's unfair. Maybe it's not nice, but I'm asking.
Deadpool 2.
Fantastic answer.
I mean, come on. I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not.
You're making a stronger case for you being on the Deadpool 2 pod.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think we should leave it at that.
All right, yeah.
In the last, 3 years, if you had to pick a dad movie, no discussion, name the movie, what's a dad movie?
Well, I mentioned A Quiet Place Part 2, and A Quiet Place Part 1 did come out in the last 3 years. I'd probably go with A Quiet Place Part 1, because that's another one that I'm very excited to show and to pass on. And also, something I didn't even mention, dad movies can also just be about fatherhood or parenthood in general or family in general.
For sure.
And that one just hits all of those.
Yeah, the guttural scream of John Krasinski when he realizes he is sacrificing himself for his family is something that does haunt me. I did not know that Jim from The Office had that in him to encapsulate all the fear and the worry and the anxiety of being a father, and in a way that transcends his apocalyptic circumstances and actually says something to me in my humdrum life. But that scream did a lot of work, and it's something I think about quite frequently. I think it's a very good choice.
Yeah, I was crying and I was terrified, and it was probably, if I had to pick like what's the best cinema experience I've had, I might have to go with The Quiet Place Part 1. Yeah,
Nice. Very
it's
good.
like the perfect cinematic experience for me.
So then I would also ask you, if you could be on one episode, what would that episode be? I mean, you've been on like 3.
I've been on,
So like, what do you want?
I didn't want to be on any of those.
Those are not the ones I wanted. I mean, we did make you do one Edgar Wright movie, and then Academy Awards, and then Zack Snyder's.
Yeah, it's been going downhill since Baby Driver. Oh my gosh, there's so many. Actually, probably one of the top ones is one that you've already done, which is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That was great. Good for you. And it definitely wouldn't be one episode, but Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings has just changed. It has actually changed my life. Both, the movies themselves, and also I'm a total nerd, so I watched all the behind the scenes. And that, if I had to pick anything, that's probably what got me into movies. Yeah, into the idea of making movies.
There was like a screen that was lifted between you and the camera. Right?
Yeah,
there's something there,
and it's not like when it's not like the magic trick is ruined. I can always go back to those movies and keep finding new things that I like, new things to talk about or think about, new things that I didn't notice before. But just seeing that journey on the screen and also behind the scenes is absolutely one of the things that got me going and said, they did it. I can do something like that. So because that's so personal to me, I think that would be probably the 3 that I would love to do.
Nice. We may in the future. And touching on what you said very briefly, talking about some of these 90s directors, talking about the Coens who do No Country for Old Men, which wins Best Picture, and there are multiple Academy Award nominated. And later on in this year, they will be coming out with Joel Coen, at least, will be coming out with The Tragedy of Macbeth, starring Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. But then moving over into some people like Sam Raimi, who is taking the reins again for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Leaving the reign. Yeah. Kind of after Marvel, and then he does Drag Me to Hell, and then we're kind of done. The horror indie master of the 90s. Yep. Or then talking about Fincher, who already has a movie lined up. Like this is the comeback for a lot of people who got started in commercials, TV shows, the indie space. And what all of them have shown us is that passion, vision, and drive will get you where you want to be. And I think you got that. I think that you have a nice career ahead of you.
Thank you.
So for all of us, we wish you well, and we'll keep checking back with you when we can.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah, it's been a big pleasure of ours to have you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Letteny, as the leading expert of the show, because you've listened to all of our episodes released thus far, haven't you?
Pretty much, yeah.
There is one exception.
Yeah, I haven't listened to the Black Widow episode because I haven't seen it yet, and you guys were getting into spoilers. So I paused that one to come back to later.
But you've listened to everything else?
Yes.
Okay. So based off of everything, ever been a time where you're like, they are absolutely wrong about that?
Oh, I should have given me this question earlier so I could think about it. Let's see. Yeah, nothing springs to mind. It's something that I really disagreed with you guys about.
Okay, so you agree with everything that we've said.
I think there's definitely been times where I disagreed with one or more of you, but I don't know if I've disagreed with the consensus.
Okay.
Like, for instance, I guess here's an example. I really love, if you guys haven't released it yet, The Big Sleep. I love The Big Sleep. And It seemed like you guys were maybe a little on the fence about that one, and I just think it's such a classic. So maybe that's a disagreement. That I can't remember if you guys said it was a dad movie, but to my mind, it's a dad movie.
So Sirr and Mike both said it was, and then I said no, and then I flip-flopped and said yes because it's a 50-50 split.
Okay.
So it's just like fine. To say a classic is a dad movie, I think is okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't really too hot in that movie.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe nostalgia plays a big role in my love for it, but also just Humphrey Bogart is one of my all-time favorite actors. Just all-time favorite cool guys. So any movie he's in, I'm pretty much automatically going to love it. And this, I think, is one of my favorite Humphrey Bogart movies.
Oh wow! Okay.
I mean, it's no Casablanca, but it's such a fun movie. Like I had the privilege of watching this beforehand, so I wasn't trying to figure out the plot while I was watching it because there's nothing really to figure out. Like, it doesn't get resolved. There's nothing to figure out. It's just a complicated mess. Yeah. So if you can step back from the complicated mess and just enjoy how cool it is and how convoluted it is and how snappy the dialogue is, then it's super enjoyable.
Yeah. I think the director had said he realized with that movie that all you really need to have for a movie are really great individual scenes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I read something about that. Like, he said that, a great movie only needs, I think he said it was 2 or 3 great scenes to make it a great movie, and no bad scenes. So a movie could be, mediocre almost all the way through, but have, 1 or 2 just bangers. And then it's an all-time classic in his mind. One great monologue or something. Which is an unusual take on movies.
I think that might be true.
Unless I'm thinking of a different interview, but I thought it was that director.
In general, that principle sounds right.
Well, I don't know.
All right, actually, I just thought of, The Matrix, right? And that has at least 9 super memorable scenes.
Yeah.
The opening one, explaining that humans are batteries.
Yeah. I mean, just the whole chase sequence with Trinity in the beginning. Where she dives through the window, she goes down the stairs, she's got the guns out. So epic, so memorable.
And then he goes to his work and he gets a random call, and then he gets interrogated by Mr. Smith and his mouth goes missing.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he's in the car, the worm comes out of his stomach, and then there's a red pill, blue pill moment.
Yeah.
Every scene is amazing. So maybe the 3 scene idea is kind of full of shit.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly seems like even one memorable scene could cement even a mediocre movie in cinema history. It's always going to be remembered, always going to be celebrated. But I guess if we're talking about what makes a great piece of art, it seems like it has to be holistically great.
Wait, I wanted to ask: Are you going to show your kids all of the MCU? Is that what?
Yeah,
like
feel?
It's interesting because I think I will at some point. I had kind of been over them and just thought, oh, they're so overhyped. But then I dove back into them a little bit, partially because like I work for distance learning school, and like high schoolers still love the Captain America versus Iron Man debate. And there were movies that I watched in college, and then we would have our entire friend group would get together and go to.
Well, we became adults with these movies.
Yeah, exactly.
I
think I will, and there is something beautiful about seeing like
Thor: The Dark World. You're gonna go back in there, or like
maybe not.
Like
there are certain highlights.
Okay.
Like that. Like you got to see the Iron Man in order to see what happens in, spoiler alert, the last Avengers, where Tony Stark definitely doesn't die. I said spoiler alert. So carte blanche. But seeing like
who is this Tony Stark?
Tony Stark RK. Basically, think of Jeff Bezos. Congratulations, Jeff Bezos. You did it. You did it, Jeff Bezos.
Jeffrey Bezos. Okay, cool. No, we had this conversation. Have you seen Black Widow yet?
I haven't seen Black Widow yet.
Check it out.
Also, like Premiere Access.
Yeah, it's on Premiere. Don't go see it on Premiere Access because Scarlett Johansson is getting screwed out of her contract by Disney. Go see it in theaters.
I'll go see it in theaters
because that's not the way you treat your people, especially this is.
I was always wondering if there were two sides to the story because it seemed like so obviously they were taking advantage of her. Like she said, "Hey guys, like we've got all these bonuses built and structured into my contract. Can we renegotiate if you're going to release it online?" And it just seemed like they lost that email or just didn't ever talk about it. And like, "Oh, sorry, we never got around to restructuring your contract. It just these movies, they're really quick."
Her contract said it will not be released simultaneously. That was
it's cut and dry.
Yeah,
that's so sad. Yeah, that's sad. But especially because she's done basically.
Yeah, she's done.
Right?
She's cut ties, and they've cut ties with each other. She's suing them, which she should.
And I had heard that it was a really good movie at showcasing the stars around her too, and which is as a star when she's been there from the beginning with all these. I just remember watching some of the early Iron Man movies, and she's there, and it's fun to see that character grow and blossom to the sacrifice that she makes in the last Avengers. But then it also a sacrifice when she finally gets her own standalone movie, and she shares a lot of the screen time with her co-stars. Yeah, because it's she's a star maker at this point in time. It feels really crappy to.
It does. The whole movie, I think overall it's a pretty good movie, and it shows a good, I don't know, an interesting step in a direction for Marvel. I don't know what that is. Yeah, but it's a complex, I feel complicated about it. It's complicated.
Sure, absolutely.
But one of the things we talked about was whether or not we would show our kids the whole MCU. And so that's why I was curious.
What did you guys think?
I am not a huge Marvel person. I think both Vito and Jesse said yes, but you know what? I don't. I have no memory at all.
So. You're just whatever. It's a stupid question.
No.
Yeah. It's okay because that it plays into we watched during COVID basically all the Disney movies that we could get our hands on. Yeah, and I was it's good for them to know about these things. Because it's how you make friends in certain ways, but not everything is created equal, and so I want to try to balance the idea of being able to engage with culture like we were talking about and get references and stuff, but also not water it down and understand Thor: The Dark World is just.
I know there's some really fun movies in there, and I wonder sometimes if it's going to be kind of like cowboy movies in a way, because cowboy movies, I don't know for you, but for me, I think oh yeah, cowboy movies are great. I can't wait. And
Cowboys and Aliens, right?
Yeah,
Cowboys versus Aliens.
Yeah, Cowboys. But I don't think it's really that's something that our our parents grew up
Yeah.
with, or like my dad did. And my
Yeah.
dad was probably older, like he was born in 49.
Yeah.
So he was on the older end
Yeah.
of the boomer
Yeah.
spectrum, but it was like a big thing they passed on to us, but it's kind of petering out. It's not as big anymore.
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, I actually kind of consider No Country for Old Men kind of a cowboy movie.
I think it definitely is, but it's like a bit of a twist.
But I've seen like a couple John Waynes, and I've seen like a few Clint Eastwoods. Like there are some that will endure, like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those
Unforgiven.
No, Unforgiven. Actually, yes, Unforgiven. Really good.
Yeah.
But I don't. So that's like. I think your point is well taken.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wonder if it's going to be like that. Yeah. So, like, it's something that was extremely impactful and whatever, but it's kind of like they're the new cowboys of the.
They are kind of like that. Is a really interesting.
I don't know. I don't know
if
that's
a saga, right?
But they're all interconnected. Unlike all those cowboys. So,
I
don't know.
But they are easy calories. Like when I really am just. I went through a stage of watching like bits and pieces of Marvel movies before I went to bed every night.
Really?
And it was just, I watched like all the movies that have been out up until that point. Like, and it was, 10 minutes at a time or something.
You would just watch 10 minutes and then go to bed.
And then go to bed. And
it sounds so stressful.
It was
like everything about that. I couldn't.
I really I did not care what I was. I would do that way too often. Like I will watch like half of a 20-minute episode of TV and then just go to sleep.
But it's just 10 more minutes, Chris.
Just 10 more minutes.
It's just 10 more minutes.
I'm really like on the edge of like I'm like about to fall asleep.
Oh my god!
I guess I'll get up and go to bed.
I don't understand how you can live that way. No, like this isn't a bad thing or anything. It's just I am forever awestruck by the differences that exist in humans. That's amazing.
It seems like so normal to me, and I'm like, yeah, this is how no one else in the world might do that.
Wild.
It's such a weird, and it's very inefficient because I end up like, oh yeah, I actually fell asleep during that. Now I've got to rewind and start from the beginning. Or the other day, like it just kept playing, and I'm like at the end of like a season, I'm like, oh gosh, what episode was I?
Well, and then they've all been played, so you got to go back and actually figure it out. It takes as long to get there.
It's all memory exercises. I'm just putting myself into a terrible position.
Interesting.
For the sake of staving off Alzheimer's.
Yeah, there you go. You're going to live forever because of this. That's awesome.
Dude, I gotta say, I'm most excited to show my kids The Dark Knight. I've been looking forward to that since I saw it in theaters. Like, yes. Like, I can't wait to show this to somebody else. And I've been looking forward to this. Like, oh, man, I think I have to wait like 8 more years.
Yeah.
Got a long way to go.
That's interesting because it seems like The Dark Knight in particular, it's a great movie, but it seems like that is a formative movie for our generation.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a unique to our generation, and maybe it's not... I don't know if it's an all-time great movie. Like, I think it's formative for us, and I think it is a great movie. Like, maybe it's one of the memorable movies of the decade it came out in, but I don't know how it stacks up against, the all-time classics.
Yeah, if you think about it as an action movie.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, if you think about the plot, it falls apart pretty quick.
Yeah.
But in terms of, like, pacing, I've never had a movie, like, take me on that ride like that movie has.
Yeah, that's true.
The Joker has a plan. Batman's solving things. Oh no, the Joker's plan is coming true, and Batman is over in Tokyo. Like, there are these crazy ups and downs, and it's like this roller coaster where it goes up and then down a little bit, then it builds up even more than the previous dip that you were on, and then goes down even further, and then goes up even higher. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole lull where they're in the prison, and then suddenly all hell breaks loose right afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, the Joker was caught.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to be done talking about The Dark Knight. I think that movie is awesome.
It is awesome, and I think, like, I don't know, maybe this is a little fanboy, but it does seem like Heath Ledger's Joker performance is one of the at least all-time great performances of of this generation.
Yeah,
if not all time.
Maybe it's what has screwed us up so much and been so obsessed with like wanting to put chaos into everything.
Yeah,
maybe we're all just trying to be the Joker.
Like, is that the best villain performance of all time? You think? I'm having trouble thinking of another villain performance that was like so captivating.
I mean, there's the obvious Hannibal Lecter.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
By Anthony Hopkins, which is really good.
It is.
And menacing.
And I think both of those they're similar in a way that it seems like they're both super memorable. One, because of the acting, but two, because there's little ticks or little tones of voice that are super memorable that stick in your head because they're so weird. Like Joker's thing where he like licks his lips.
Yeah.
It's so memorable because it's so weird. It's so inhuman. Or Anthony Hopkins' little whatever he does. Like,
it's true. I think the Joker is just more of a captivating character.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what movies like we're going to feel that way about. Like, will No Country for Old Men in 20 years, like, will that be a terrible movie? Not have held up at all? What do you think?
I don't know. I'd like to think that one. I mean, I think any movie where you're making like deep statements about human nature, and then, you know, the acting, the production values are good too. I feel like those tend to hold up. I feel like things that are trying too much to be about a certain specific time or like trying to really capture the zeitgeist at a moment, it's really hit or miss. Because if they really nail it, maybe it works. But most of the time you look back at that and be like, yeah, no, that was a weird time. I don't really want to revisit that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I usually try to use that as a test when I see movies. I'm like, I wonder, like, project forward 30 or 40 years, like, is this going to hold up or not? But there's no way to know until you're watching it on the other side.
Long Day's Journey into Night. Will Long Day's Journey into Night hold up in 30 years?
I think if it holds up the first time, it'll hold up any other time you see it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Have you seen Limbo yet?
Limbo? No, actually, I don't know what that is.
Okay. You got to see Limbo. I'm shouting out Limbo on every single episode until you guys all watch it because it's great.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like No Country for Old Men, movies like that, I think will hold up. Yeah. I think that movie intentionally tries to be a little bit timeless because it's already doing like a Western feel at a time when Westerns aren't really a thing anymore, but it didn't feel weird when I was watching it at the time. So I feel like it already did a pretty good job getting outside of time and just telling a story. And, so I think something like that will hold up. But you never know till you're watching them on the other side, I feel like.
I know.
Because you changed too.
Yeah. Because you changed too. That's true. And I wonder about like there's some filmmakers and directors and writers who you think like, oh, like these are classic writers, classic directors, like Paul Thomas Anderson or the Coen Brothers in general, Corbett McCarthy, who wrote that, Quentin Tarantino, maybe. But I wonder about some of them, like who's going to, like Edgar Wright. Is Edgar Wright going to be around, in 30 years? Are people going to remember him? Mm-hmm. I love Edgar Wright. I love the movies that he does, like Shaun of the Dead and Baby Driver, which we've talked about on the show.
Yeah.
But that's also like that's kind of the zeitgeisty movie. Same with Shaun of the Dead. Same with the cop one. Why can't I ever remember the name?
Yeah, I think it's
kind of. Yeah, they're kind of like of the moment because like these are things that people are focusing on. They're very genre focused, but at the same time, it's kind of lampooning the genre as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, which that kind of, if it puts it a little bit outside the genre, I feel like that stands a better chance. Yeah. But I don't know. Again, I think until you're watching it when you're different 30 years from now and you see it again, I feel like there's never any real way to know because I feel like there's some things that, win Oscars or are super acclaimed that even 10 years later, they're forgotten about, or everybody was like, yeah, what were we thinking? When we were into that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a weird time.
Yeah. So only time can tell, I think, on those, but I don't know. Like I said, I think that there's a certain timelessness that a movie can achieve that makes me feel more confident that it'll stand the test of time.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like artsy films, it's like you in a corner, like staring at your phone.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I also feel like it seems like my dad's reaction to artsy movies is I just have no patience for it, which I get. Like if you've spent if you've been watching movies for decades, you have no patience. You're not willing to put in the commitment to a movie that may just be, self-indulgent crap.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, a lot of art house movies are.
Yeah.
So,
but again, I think the internet helps save this, because now every time there's a movie I'm confused about, I go on the internet.
Yeah.
I can look up hundreds of reviews with the director. I can look up, hundreds of YouTube videos expounding on what it was about.
Yeah.
And then I can get more out of it. Whereas, that's a fundamentally different movie experience than from 30 years ago, even.
yeah, I mean, I guess in the past, and even, I'm not even talking about the last generation, but even before I used the internet regularly or had a phone, my opinion of a movie was almost entirely shaped by my watching of the movie and then who I watched it with and the immediate conversation we had afterwards. That shaped me and the person I watched it with shaped my perception of the movie forever. Where now, if it's a movie that I care even a little bit about, or thinking about even a little bit, there's influence from the internet. I'm going to be reading reviews. I'm probably going to listen to podcasts about it. I'll probably watch the Honest trailers if they did an Honest trailers, or the pitch meeting guy.
Pitch meeting. You gotta love the pitch meeting guy.
And maybe that's, in a way, there's something lost there, I think, that your opinions are less your own now. And sure, you have all this other input of you get all this new insight you didn't have before, but also I think you are influenced more, and maybe you read a review by someone you respect, and that changes what you think of the movie.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Personally, I try really, really hard not to. I don't read reviews. That's why I don't like the aggregator Rotten Tomatoes score or anything like that. I like to watch a trailer, and then I just like to watch the movie. I don't want to know what everybody thought about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair. I do feel like, to me, Rotten Tomatoes is useful just in the number. That if there's a movie in theaters I don't know anything about, if it's got a score less than, 50%, I'm not going to see it. Because less than 50%, there's enough people that hate it.
But less than 50% audience score or critic score?
Well, I guess the Google results, just aggregates them, I guess.
The Google results?
When you Google a movie and it'll show the Rotten Tomatoes score.
I think it just shows critic.
Maybe it's just the critic.
Yeah. I think that's what pops up first. You have to go to the movie and then it shows, audience and critic.
Oh, okay.
So, The Last Jedi it shows as positive, but if you click on it, it says...
Oh, the fans hated it.
The fans hate it, yeah.
Yeah, so I think in some ways our passion for movies is definitely facilitated by the internet. And, I think I've seen 150 movies this year. Just this year.
150 movies this year?
Which, well, let me check. I've got it on Letterboxd. it's over 100 for sure.
Oh my word, that's more than me.
Let's see. I have watched 140 films this year, since January 1st. That would be impossible without streaming. I think you get a lot more out of movies with the internet, but yeah, there's something lost there, for sure.
Well, yeah, I think you get more out of it, but part of the reason why I enjoy doing the podcast, because, movies are supposed to impact you.
Yeah.
And if you just watch them, read a couple things, and then go about your day, it's I don't know. There's no impact being made. Yeah. It almost feels like justice isn't done to the movie. I love the experience of watching a movie, then going out and talking about it with friends. That's the best sort of movie to me.
Yeah, and that's what I love about doing the podcast. Is that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's just
that's why I do it.
It's like that parking lot conversation after going to see a movie in the theaters.
I love that parking lot conversation.
Yeah.